Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is Greg Bicknell. Greg, are you ready to be great today?
Oh, yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Greg was born in Richmond, Kentucky, where he graduated from Madison Southern High School in 1990, entering the United States Air Force the very next month, following a distinguished career that led him to the highest enlisted rank of Chief Master Sergeant. He was medically retired in 2019. Greg presently resides in Lakeland, Florida, with his beautiful wife and two girls, 18 and 20. As a United States Air Force veteran with a strong background in strategic leadership, executive-level communication, and team development, Greg is intent on utilizing his skills to lead the nonprofit community into a new world of possibilities. Additionally, Greg has applied suicide intervention skills, is currently serving as Executive Vice President of Veterans and Informed Personal Engagement at Family Leadership Life Skills. Greg, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
So, Greg, I'm going to hit you with a softball question first.
Okay.
Talk about your 3,400-mile journey with your daughter.
Journey with my daughters, huh? So, it's been amazing, to be honest with you. Everybody always asks you when you have kids, what, you want boys, you play ball. And honestly, after I had my girls, I'm like, I wouldn't even know what to do with boys, right? It's it's sometimes it challenged me with the emotional stuff, which, I'm not programmed sometimes to deal with, but it's been so cool. They really protect their dad, and they took care of me during some of the trying times along with my wife. And so, that part of them being who they are and having their mother's compassion and emotion just really, I'm always blessed to have them there. But man, yeah, there's been the challenges, the boyfriends, all that kind of good stuff. But at one time, I think my oldest daughter came in and said, Dad, I think I found your song. It was when that one came out, I'm cleaning my gun. I'll be here cleaning my gun. And I said, well, let's not quite go that far. We don't know how people are going to respond, but I'm like, but it could be true, just depending on, how he acts when he comes in the door. So we'll go from there. But no, it's been an amazing experience. My two daughters and wife, I couldn't ask for anything better. My wife's great, supportive. She's with me 26 years in my military career. We got married while I was in. And then both my daughters are military kids, and they love the moving, love the travel, and we're very supportive and still are. So it was great.
So where do y'all go to on this 3,400-mile road trip?
3,400-mile road trip.
Yeah.
So, we went on a long road trip back. Oh, it was right before I retired, and we kind of turned it into I don't know. We kind of started out. We pointed toward Flagstaff, Arizona, and went up to the Grand Canyon. Ended up in California and did this big, around the world, around the nation trip on the eastern or the western half. And it was pretty cool because we were in this car, and you would think that after being in a car for so long, you'd probably be at each other. But it was the coolest trip because we were out in Santa Monica. We went down. Actually, we ended up in Hollywood one day when the Batman premiere was coming out. And so it was so crowded. They were all looking at us going, Dad, this is really cool, but we should go because it was just jam packed. Right. But we got to see some really cool stuff. We drove all over. We were heading up into the Grand Canyon. This was one of my fondest memories is we were heading up in the Grand Canyon. We had the top open, we had the windows down. I was just blasting the music, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, she loves Bon Jovi and, that era of music. And so we all know that music in the house, and we were just having a blast. Probably did not want to put that on TV because I'm sure it didn't sound very good, but to us it was a blast. So it was a great trip.
Yeah, I've been to Santa Monica a couple more times myself. I like Santa Monica a lot. That's a nice place to go visit. Mm-hmm. Isn't it crazy like how everyone likes our generation of music, right? Like,
oh yeah, I know.
Yes,
I love it. I just had a guy, so we got an event coming up this weekend, and he was sending a text. He's like, "Hey, what about this?" And he was sending me like 70s mix, 80s mix, 90s mix, and I'm like, I love the mix, man, but you know where my heart's at. So, but yeah, I said I'm good with whatever you guys put out there. If you listen to me, we'll listen to Creedence Clearwater Revival and Journey and all that stuff, and just be loving life. So
how many days was this trip you took with your daughters?
It was about 12 or 14 days. So it was, like I said, we started out, it was kind of a trip. We started out, went to, the first day was a really hard drive, right? And so we went and we stopped in Flagstaff, and we got a place there called Fort Tuthill. We had a little cabin, and then we went up to the Grand Canyon, hung out there, but we kind of base camped there for a couple of days. And then we went to Vegas, and we had a condo out there. And we have family out there as well. So we got to hang out with them and go do some cool stuff. And then from Vegas, we went to went out and kind of cruised PCH and all that kind of cool stuff, and then made our trip round going west. So it was about 12 days, but every day was changing, but we really kind of sucked it up on that first day. So the rest of the day, we only traveled like 5 hours a pop. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So we would get up, have breakfast, kind of chill, not really push it to where we'd be exhausted when we got somewhere. But if we saw like the biggest ball of yarn off to the side of the road, we could end up going and seeing it, right? They're always afraid to fall asleep when I'm driving, because if it looks exciting, I may go check it out, right? So they wake up like, why are we in this cornfield? Oh man, there's a 7-foot long corn, ear of corn out here. We got to go check it out. And like, oh my gosh, Dad, I thought we were going to Vegas, but it's always a blast.
And is this something you did like spur of the moment, or is this something actually planned out?
So, so I went to Afghanistan in 2016, and I was there. And while I was there, I planned this amazing vacation, like military folks kind of tend to do. This amazing vacation, we come back. Well, I had this road trip planned, and I'd pegged all the locations and kind of did the logistics, and had it all like, we got this day here and all this kind of stuff. And when I got back, the kids looked at me after me planning this, and looking forward to it. They're like, we want to go to Disney World. And I'm like, I guess we're going to Disney World. And so the next year, our vacation was already planned. And we had a blast in Disney. We loved it down there, but we got to take that road trip. But it was already pre-planned. So really all we had to do is, lay in the hotels and where we were staying and all that kind of stuff. And it worked out really well, but it was already pre-planned, but it was planned. It actually happened and executed a year after. It was originally planned to happen.
Nice. Hey, Greg, and you're taking part of NYU Veterans Future Labs right now?
So I went through that. So I was a course. So I'll kind of give you a quick story here. Back in January, well, let me go back further. In December of 2020, I went through my medical VA appointments, and I was working for a company called Drock International, great company, kind of like the Red Air stuff. And what you see in Top Gun, they were the bad guys. We go out there and fly against the thing. But I had developed ulcers, just kind of the rigors and me getting medically retired and everything. I kind of got a little bit concerned, right? And so I totally forgot what question you asked me just now. So you kind of saw that leave my brain, right?
Yeah.
But can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Are you taking part in the NYU Veterans Future Labs?
Okay, so here's what it was.
That.
Yeah, so after that, I kind of realized I wanted to slow down a little bit, because I was working about 90 hours a week, and they were taking good care of me, like I said. But I reached out to the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, right? And so I'm a wounded warrior. I was retired, medically wounded warrior. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about resigning from this job, because it's just, it's not letting me get healthier, which I really need to get for my family and myself. And, what can we do? Well, the guy, Rick Mesa, who now is retired, but he said, hey, I've got this program I'd love to connect you with. So I went through that program, and I actually went through their Vet 1 program, which they already had stood up. And then I was on the initial side of their Vet 2 program. And it's an amazing program. Alexa Madero and Kate Stridall out there at the time.
Yeah,
amazing. And I think Alexa, you know them pretty well. I think Alexa said to say hi. But I went out there and went through that, and I was the first cohort to go through the Vet 2 program. So it was really cool. And they did such an amazing job and set me up for success. And then in March 19th, I think you talked with Carrie Stewart. So Carrie Stewart asked me to come to Warriors Ascent, and I went through that program. I got back at the end of February, and the first day back at work, I think it was the first actual Monday in March, I dropped my resignation paperwork and said, you know what, I need to go take care of myself. I just went to a program that was amazing. Carrie, he and I have been friends for over 30 years. And he just kind of, I realized that I needed to take care of me better. I still haven't been doing a great job of it, but I'm getting there. And that program helped me to realize that I needed to go do what I loved. And I was already doing something I was good at. But the good thing about it was the company and I let them know what was coming on. I didn't hide anything from them, and I gave them the 2-week notice and all that. So, and they've still been very supportive. I still speak with them on a regular basis. So yeah, it was that program. It really set me up for where I'm at now. It really did.
Man, so you're working 90 hours a week. That's crazy hours, especially if a company you don't own.
Yeah, it was a little, it was a smaller company, but we were doing some really big things, right? And so, and I won't say every week was 90 hours, but there were a lot of weeks where, we were working as a team. And at the time when I was there, Jared Isaacman was the CEO, and then the CEO changed. But the whole time we were really, it kind of went off of his hobby. His hobby was flying airplanes and building this airport, or this group of aircraft, F1s and MiGs and all these things, where we would fly against the Air Force and whoever else would, pay us, right? It was a revenue generation. And so it was really cool. It was a great job. That was the thing that made it so fun, is sometimes I didn't care to work those hours, right? Because it was something that we were building something new. They recruited me to come in and build an engine program. And so I was really excited to get a chance to utilize my skill set. But the biggest part of that was after I had my brain surgery in 2018, I wasn't so sure when I got out of the military what I was going to be able to do. And I was his chief, and my commander, I was his commander. He asked me, said, "Hey, I need someone to help build a program." And so I came down, I said, "I'm not the same person you remember, because of the surgery. At the time, it was a lot different than I am now." And he said, "You know what, we'll take who you are. And we know that guy's going to give us everything he can while he's here at work, and we'll take that guy and we'll work around everything." And they did. When I was having bad days, with some vertigo issues or whatever, I would work from home, or I would take a break. And it was amazing. So I owe them a lot, because they actually helped me build my confidence back. They really did, and allowed me to kind of step out away from there when it was time and then move on. As a matter of fact, I got coined by the CEO the last day at work there. He happened to be on site in Lakeland. I walked in and was like, "Hey, it's been great working with you. And I really appreciate everything you guys have done for me. It's been amazing." And he goes, "What?" He didn't know it, right? CEO. He didn't know that one of his program managers. It was just because, again, we were moving a lot, not on his fault, but it was, he coined me on my final day. And I thought that meant a lot to me, because I kind of jokingly asked him, I said, "Is this because of the good work I did, or you just don't want me coming back? Like, hey, get out of here, pal, you're gone." But I really appreciate what they did. And that Veterans Future Lab, in that time frame, I was going through that. And it just, like I said, it let me realize that there's some things that I can do and still be able to take care of myself, quite a bit better than what I was doing there. Because I was so into the job, and I was learning, and I was, putting everything I had into it, but it wasn't helping people directly. I was helping a company, I was doing things, but I love training people. I love helping folks, kind of be better. And I also needed it for myself. I was still going through some healing, and working there where I was so focused, it let me forget about taking care of Greg Bicknell. And that was something that I had to deal with. And I think I worked so hard and put in those hours, maybe not, they weren't making me do it, but I think I just I immersed myself into it, because I didn't want to deal with what I really needed to deal with, which was my medical concerns, coming out of the military. So.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Alexa and Kate. They been over backwards to help people out, especially veterans. I'm a big fan of what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So question for you: in the Air Force 26 years, can you tell me what your favorite place, your wife's favorite place, and your kid's favorite place was in all those 26 years of moving around the world?
Yeah, every place, like I don't think I ever went to a bad place that we didn't like. Whiteman Air Force Base was the most grueling because of the mission there. It's the strategic deterrence base. But we made a lot of great friends there. But it was also a job that they kind of thought I was on the road the whole time because of the hours that we worked at that base, because of what the mission set was, right? But I will say that the place that we really grew roots in was down here in Florida. I'm in Lakeland now, but I was stationed at Hurlburt Field. And we had some friends there that was from the church, friends there at the local community. And we still really, that's a place that still draws us as like a home location. You know what I mean? And so my kids loved it there. They were in their primary school, their elementary school years, their teachers, our friends, even the people that actually came from that area when we were stationed there, we're still friends with them. And so we have friends now that live up in Georgia. They were part of a church life group we had there. And our kids are still just as tight as they ever were. And we go and visit them regularly. Like for me, it's like a halfway stop between here and my parents' house. And so they get this, like, surprise, I need to stop by for a night, but they're always cool and we always have a good time. So that was probably the best. That was the absolute best base, was Hurlburt Field. And it was more because of the community. We love the base. We love the beaches. That's why we like it down here where we're at now. We could be at a beach really quickly or kind of relax here in Lakeland, really beautiful city. But it was the community that we had there. And my wife, when I deployed out of Hurlburt Field, honestly, my biggest concern was that people would try to do too much. And it would really, they would get their feelings hurt when my wife was like, hey, I got it. Because it was a place that I felt so at ease when I was leaving, because I knew there wasn't a thing I was ever going to have to worry about. Nothing. And I knew my family was taken care of. I knew that they would be there no matter what it was, because we went through some really crazy years there with family and some things that were going on, and our friends as well. Matter of fact, one of our friends that we're still good, the first time we really was with them was when their daughter had broken her arm. They was in the hospital at 2 a.m. doing emergency surgery. And we barely knew him, and packed up and went and hung out at the hospital with them that night. And now our kids that's the one I was telling you about that's in Florida or in Georgia. And we became friends overnight, but we packed up and said, hey, these people need help. Let's go in there and see what it's all about. and it kind of clicked for us, but it was something that was telling us, hey, we should support them. And throughout my whole career, we've been very supportive of each other, and it's just been really cool. So
Where's Lakeland? Where's Lakeland, Florida at?
So Lakeland, if you look at Tampa and Orlando, we're right in the middle. So right along the I-4 corridor. So I tell people that unfortunately or fortunately, I'm about 40 minutes away or 50 minutes away from places I go to way too much. One is the VA hospital, and the other one is Disney World when my family drags me there, right? And so one helps me get better. The other one is fun to go hang out in. And there's just days, honestly, that I don't want to go to either one of them. Then there's days that I'm like, okay, I need to go get this checked out, right?
Yeah.
Or I need to go and just have some fun and blow off steam.
How long y'all been there?
We moved. So I moved down in September. I retired in May 28th of 2019. And then, and it was the 28th again, because it was a medical retirement. And then I came down in September, almost 90 days after. It was Labor Day in September of that year. I came down, and then my family, because school was going on, they moved down in December. So we're on right about, what is that, 3 years? I don't like doing math in public, but that 3-ish years, something like that. Is that right? 3.5 years? Let's see, 19, 20, 21. No, 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that. So yeah, right in that ballpark.
Hey, Greg, talk about this. This is, and this is what I think. So now everybody, thanks us for our sacrifice and stuff. But one thing I don't think people don't get, like, they get the deployments, time away from their family. What they don't get is like me and my family, we spend a lot of time overseas. So like none of my family, brothers, sisters, my wife's brothers, sisters, saw my kids do anything in school, right? No games, no plays. And same thing, like we didn't see any of our nieces and nephews do anything right in school, right? Like no Thanksgivings at home. And I think that's one thing a lot of like quote unquote civilians don't get, like we're not around family, like blood family during the holidays, right? Or like, there's always Sunday dinner. And I think those sacrifices people don't realize veterans miss out on all the time.
And I tell people sometimes, I'm like, my friends, a guy called me last night. He and I have been friends since tech school. This weekend I was on a phone call with 3 of my buddies that we were in basic together, and we were 14, well, not 14, we're probably 19. We probably acted like we were 14, but we were, 18, 20 years old again. We were back in that time frame, right? But when you're with somebody, you hear people talk about stuff like, that you hear kind of people have that feeling like they want to deploy. But what I found out is it's not necessarily deployment. It's that fact that you get real connected and close with your brother and sister that's next to you. And that feeling of community, that feeling of connectedness, and so when I'm with, my military brothers and sisters, I've lived next to them. I don't, in those younger days, we didn't go pay a plumber to come over to somebody's house if they sprung a leak. We went and got 3 or 4 dudes that thought they might know what they were doing. And then there wasn't YouTube in those days. So we went and got some duct tape and really used some ingenuity and fixed it because, we couldn't afford it. Or if something was going on and somebody was out of town, you just called your buddies and they showed up in the middle of the night, whenever it was. And so I think that's something that it's hard to understand if you're a part of it. You know what I mean? And it is tough. It is tough. And when I reach out, I go home to my family. I can meet another veteran like you. We've met in person for the first time, and we can have a conversation like nobody's business, and just go and that we all these stories. But when I go to family and I go home sometime after the initial top surface conversations, realistically, there's not a whole lot there.
There's like nothing there.
Yeah. And because we're kind of they call it skilled in a lot, but master of none, because we've had to learn that way, right? Especially when I was in for actually, 29 years, retired or had the surgery at 28, but it was one of those things that you have to just learn stuff, and maybe in their career field, that's what they've done their whole life. They got out of high school, they went to college, they went and worked their career, they did it and they retired, or they're still in it. And where us, every time I move places, or even at some locations, I may have had 3 or 4 jobs in that location that were totally different, all of them, than the one I had before that.
Or like you might go home to your hometown and meet with old friends. You think to yourself, man, I could swear the same conversation we had like the last 10 times I've been here, right? They talk about the same thing over and over again because their experience doesn't change, right? They're doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my friends back home. So I have a lot of some, have military experience, and some of them are retired. And so that's the one. It's what's odd. I never thought about that until you just said it. But I go back, and some folks really keep up with me, especially, they've really paid attention to the career. But it's my military friends when I go back, or folks that have been in the military, that kind of is drawn toward me. And like, we were good friends before, but now when I go back, we can go meet at the local restaurant or go down to the brewery that my buddy owns or wherever, and just hang out because we have these common experiences. And then when you move from base to base, I think I moved like 13 times. And when you go into a new base or you go to a deployment or whatever, you may not know anybody that you're there with. after you get older, you get to know a few people, but you just have to figure it out, And so when I go home and I sit down and have those conversations, I notice that the vets, it's just such an easier and more casual conversation without trying to have to make it work.
Yeah, you bring a good point. Like, I don't think most people realize how much we have to move the military, right?
Mhm.
I think my kids was like 8, 9 schools, all the moves we did. And,
Mhm.
it's a struggle sometimes. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, it's been rough. Like my oldest daughter, I really feel bad because I retired in her at the end of her sophomore year, and then when we moved, obviously it was COVID, and so she did online, she did in school, she's back and forth. She did some Abeka, some of the other schools where they get the book, but it's been different for her. So her experience has been a totally different experience. And I know a lot of folks, kids in college, she's not the only one that kind of went through that. Where do I get my best education? But now we're coming up to the end of her graduation. And honestly, because of the much as she's moved and kind of bounced back and forth to really figure out where, she could get the best education, she doesn't have that core group of friends like somebody like me. I was raised in the same place in Richmond, Kentucky, my whole life, in Madison County, Kentucky. And I still go back there and I still see those friends. I have them, which, military kids don't have that. They have the experience of traveling all over the place, but, they consider Kentucky, I believe, to be like home. That's kind of home for them. And that's where my parents live, and my brother and most of my family.
Greg, what's your definition of mental health?
So mental health, man, way to give me an easy one here. Uh, so mental health, I think it means taking care of yourself in an effort to be able to thrive and to be your best for others. I think that's something that self-care part, mental health, it's something that people don't see. It's something that people sometimes don't recognize. But it's something that's internal that you have to deal with. And that's where the self-care comes in. And somebody like me, I was suicidal at one point after my brain surgery in 2018, but I knew all the right things to say. I knew all the right things to do because the military had taught me how to watch out for it, but they also taught me how to hide it when I was in that situation. And so, mental health is something that it's really, as much as we look and try to dig into it, it's about getting personal with somebody and truly understanding when they're having that bad day, that the casual, hey, I'm good, man, but I think mental health is something that really forces us, and I know it's not a clinical definition, but it's something that deep down inside it's am I good or am I not good? Am I thriving or am I not thriving? I don't know if good or bad, but thriving or not thriving. Is there something that I can tweak, or is there something I need to go and work through to be the best person that I can be? And am I willing to go and ask for help when I need it? Because, in our generation, we didn't talk about that. You just kind of, well, yeah, hey, yeah, I'm having a rough marriage. Okay, cool. Can you go on this deployment? Or whatever it was. And for me, I retired as I was the chief, the group chief at Dyess Air Force Base when I retired. And I thought I was a really good people chief, if you want to call it that. I thought I was real. And then I got out and I realized that statement, that mission, was it mission first, people always, is I'm like, why is that the case? Why isn't it people first, people always? Both of them. Because if you take care of the people are going to take care of you. And that's what happened to me. Lunkhead like me, I had to have, a whole crowd around me to help me get to where I made it to. I didn't do it by myself. And I think that's part of that mental health, is that we have so much going on inside here and people can't see it. They can't feel it. It's internalized. And it's something that really, and honestly, the first step, the member has to be willing to come forward, but also from our perspective, the member has to feel comfortable to come to us and say, I got something going on. And there's a give and take there. And I know with mine, I struggle with it daily. I struggle with it sometimes. I struggle with it a lot. And matter of fact, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I kind of freaked out on my vice president of Camaraderie Rescue Mission, my org. And I got so crazy that I resigned. I got so mad and so angry with what I was like, I'm done. I resigned from my own organization, the one that I built, the founder of, you know what I mean? That's where I was at, right? And like 10 minutes later, I'm like, what was I doing? But that wasn't me. But I'll tell you what happened is after that is I went to my neurologist, and that forced me to ask some tough questions. And I told the doctor exactly what had been going on with me. I have no emotion regulation. I'm either super excited or super angry. And I just kind of attribute it to PTSD. And he came out and there's a bunch of other stuff that goes with it. I won't bore you with all the details, but he said, he diagnosed me with pseudo dementia. And I have problems forgetting stuff and things like that. But it's curable. But it comes from major depression. From when I had that surgery, I thought I wasn't the same person I was. Not only at 18 years did I have a brain surgery that didn't go well, it made me actually worse off when I came out than when I went in. But I was at the end of my career, and I don't remember my 28th to the 29th year. I don't remember my daughter's last year of high school. And so, there's still some things that my oldest daughter and I, my family, we still have to work out, because I went from a guy that was kind of laid back to a person that, you got to walk on eggshells around sometime. And I'm getting there. I became a very heavy participant in my own care. But I think, with other folks, and I think honestly, in that whole situation is many things were put in front of me, and I went through some things that I'm a Christian. And I think that it was one of those deals that I think God put it there so I could understand. When I was at the point that I'm at now, to where I work with people on a regular basis and sit down, that I would understand what they're going through, because I can relate on a personal level. I don't think God wanted me to commit suicide. I don't think he wanted me to do a lot of things, but I do think that there was a place for me that I had to say, I can relate to somebody now. If you haven't been there, it's really hard to understand. And when I was at that point, I thought I was maybe doing something heroic. And when I reached out for the first time in a 28-year career, at that point, I reached out and I emailed, because I was still crying. I had double vision and all I could do. And when I reached out, the person on the other end of the line on the email said, "Make an appointment now. How can I help you?"
What the fuck?
Yeah. And so, and that was with, and I kind of got that. I was a chief at that point. I knew the person very well. And not only did they say, "How can I help you?" They copied and pasted the Air Force instruction and put it in the email to let me know why I shouldn't have contacted them via email. Right. Well, I was on meds. I couldn't see straight. And the only way I knew how to get a hold of somebody was I happen to have my computer and I can type without looking at the keyboard. You know what I mean? That high school typing class paid off. Right. And so I typed that email and said, "Man, I really need your help." My eyes were closed and I was typing. And I got that back. And I tell people that day, it's probably what saved my life, I'll be honest, is Greg Bicknell was having the worst day of his life. I didn't know what was going to happen for the rest of my life. I didn't know what was going to go on. I didn't know really where I was at, but I felt like I just had to do something. And that seemed like an option. Now I realize it wasn't the option at all, because, man, I went from there to now, running a couple companies and other things, and just kind of moving forward and helping other folks. But I couldn't believe it. But Chief Bicknell that day saved Greg Bicknell's life, because Chief Bicknell got really pissed off. Chief Bicknell said, "What the heck is going on here? And if he's doing this to me, he's doing it to other folks."
Yeah.
And so,
especially the low-ranking people.
Yeah. And I forward it. So here's the funny thing. I tell this because I speak, on behalf of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, and I go around and talk, but I tell them, I'm like, that day I emailed my group commander. I was a group superintendent. I sent it over to him. And when I emailed him, I said, "Hey, this is what just happened," because it was all an email. And I said, I'm just letting you know I'm handling it. And when he looked at it, I can kind of envision this picture, right? That he goes, "Oh, wow." And then he went, "Oh no," because he's thinking, all right, Chief's ticked off. He's highly medicated. And nobody's there to kind of reel him in. So something bad's going to happen. We are both going to the principal's office, guaranteed, when he gets done with this, right? But I reached out to the med group commander and their chief, and I said, "Look, here's what happened. We've got to fix this," right? And they were great to me. I mean, it was a bad moment, and the person was only following regulations, right? Because it said you weren't supposed to do that, and they were doing what they're supposed to. And I don't ever talk about, but sometimes you got to use a little bit of common sense. And I know that part is overworked, but man, you can't just cold hand off somebody and send them a note like that. Like, "How can I help you?" And I still struggle with that. I've tried to, but I had an opportunity to go back and give I was asked to come over and do a speech after I retired, actually. And that individual was in the room, and I had a chance to kind of make my point, and I did it very professionally. And nobody really knew what was going on other than maybe, him and some of the leadership in the back. But I got a chance to tell him, if you're wearing that medical badge, if you're wearing that, it doesn't matter if you work in the records room, if you're on the phone, if you're a neurosurgeon, but when you have that medical thing, and somebody reaches out to you, you're in a position of authority. It doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter what your position. But when you have that badge that says you're a medical professional, when somebody calls you, you better dang well be willing to answer the call. And if you can't, and you're in a bad position, you have to be willing to take the knee and say, you know what, I can't do this today, because not only does your career depend on it, but somebody else's life may depend on it. And that day, had I not had the options, knowing that as a chief, I had open doors to any, pretty much any office I wanted to walk into, I don't know where that would have went. If I would have been a younger person that couldn't reach out to the group commanders, couldn't reach out to whoever I wanted to, I don't know how that would have went. I don't know if I'd be here having this conversation right now. And so that bothers me. And that's what drives me on a daily basis, is that I don't want someone else to go through that. It was rough for me. I know I probably got sidetracked, but man, when I get on stuff, when I have these conversations, I want folks to understand that there are other options out there. You know what I mean? And there's just because you got an idiot on the other end of the phone line that's probably not making your day better. When you have that camaraderie and that connection, and that's what we're trying to build at Camaraderie Rescue Mission, is that connection. If you can't connect and the other can support and sustain, that doesn't really matter. You got to connect at the grassroots. We got to meet each other. We got to talk to each other, and because we'll be honest with each other, and then we can move forward. So that's a little diatribe for me, but we got to be better, collectively. And luckily I handled it correctly. I got some kudos for actually doing that. And then the odd thing about it was the first year that Camaraderie Rescue Mission was in operation, that med group commander became my vice president.
Nice.
I was the president. She was the vice president. So, and that wouldn't have happened. I want people to understand that wouldn't have happened if I would have went in there, trying to take people out, but I wanted to help. I wanted to help change the way things were done and change the process. And there's a lot of processes that need to be changed right now.
So Greg, let's talk real fast about how the military helps you hide your depression, what you're going through, right? Like, perfect example, like, I can only speak to Army. In Army, before you get ready to deploy, they ask you a question: are you depressed? You got anything going wrong? And suppose something's going on with you, right? And you're like a senior person,
right?
And you say yes. If you say yes, someone who's not trained up is going to take your place. If you say yes, it's going to take your career off track, because I know you need to deploy to get promoted, kind of stuff. Right. So even though the Army, back in the day, we used to say, we want you to support you, the back of the day was telling them, don't admit to it, because if you admit to it, all the negative things are going to happen to your career.
And so I think with today, we're making a change. There has been a shift, and like I go on the road for the Air Force Women Warrior Program to talk about it and ask them to come forward. When I spoke at Dice Air Force Base last year, I think there was around 1,000 people, 800 to 1,000 people we spoke to, and there was 37 people that came forward and said, hey, I could use some help. And we see it, we're still seeing it very significantly in the cops, but there are those moments that when people come forward, if it's significant enough to where they can't continue their career, you're right. And for me, I should have asked for help 15 years before I did. And maybe it would have changed my career, but I don't know. I think we're having a change in the culture now. I think there's something going on, but back when we were in, you couldn't mention mental health. It felt as though your career was over. Like you just didn't talk about it. And I'm glad that that's changing. There's a lot of, people I just want people that need help to get the help that they need. And just like with everything else, there's going to be all kinds of different folks at what levels they need help and how much help they need and whatever the assistance is. But man, I get pissed like that guy, that responded to me. And that wasn't healthy. That could have, and so there's a human factor that's built in there, and there's a commander, there's a chief, there's all those folks. And I'll tell you, I can't say that before some things happened to me that I truly realized that I would have made some of those decisions that may have been deemed not the appropriate ones and may have, changed someone's career forever. Because I was looking at the mission. Again, I thought I was a very solid people person, but when I was looking at the mission, how can I go forward? And I realized I was looking at some of that all wrong, and I own that now, but then I didn't. Then I thought, I'm doing the right thing here. We got to remove this person from the line. We got to remove this person from a deployment or whatever. And that may have been a difference. But I think that we're making a change, and I see it. Like I'm out and about and I talk to the bases and I do stuff, and there is a change, but there's still a lot of work to do. They taught me for years on how to recognize it. But the way that I hit it, I just was the same guy that I always was. Back before I had surgery, my kids say that when they had the brain surgery, they hit the emotional nerve, right? I was that guy at the end of the tail that was like this. This is me when I was happy. This is me when I was sad. This is me when I was ticked off. Maybe the eyebrows came close together when I was super ticked off. But, I just kept that stone cold persona. And I just kind of kept that mask on to where, every day, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm doing good. But, at that point, the higher up in rank you go, is the fewer people you truly come in contact with for a day. So you can lock yourself in your office and you can do those different kind of things. And if you look at the statistics, the age group 50 and above, that's becoming a big, that's people aren't coming forward because so I'm going to tell you this. This is something that probably articulates it better than anything I've said so far, is when I went and I was having my struggles and I was home and I had the surgery and I was in a bad place, right? Didn't know what I was going to do. And my family didn't reach out for help, right? And we were in a situation where I went from this guy that was at the top of his career in the job I wanted. And now I'm in this place where I needed help. My family needed help, but my family didn't ask for help. You know why? Because they didn't think I would want them to. They didn't want to ask for help because they didn't want anybody thinking less of me when I went back to work to think that I was damaged. And so they just put it all on their shoulders. And it was almost, my daughter graduated in 2019 and we went to Disney World with some friends of ours. And that was the first time at Disney World I got on a ride and I had to literally get ridden out of the park on one of those little scooters. And everybody was crying. It was just a bad day. But our friends were there and it was almost a relief because that was the first time. So it went from May of 2018 to July of 2019 before anybody ever really got a peek on it. And that includes family, friends, boyfriends of my kids, anything. Nobody knew about it. Our close friends didn't know. We didn't talk about it unless it was inside of our walls. And when that happened, it was such a relief for my family because finally somebody saw what they had dealt with and they could finally talk about it. And if there's something that I could change, would be the fact that I would be that example that would have asked for help before and they would have known that it was okay. And that's a struggle, and I look back on that and I regret the way that, I think for the military side and being at the table when things are going crazy and I'm looking calm and, I may look upset all the time because these crazy eyebrows or something, right? Or frowny or whatever you want to call it, but for my family, I wish they would have felt that it was okay to reach out and ask for something. But they didn't because they were protecting me. And as much as I appreciate that, I will probably forever feel guilty about it.
I know one thing with the military, a lot of people in the military will push back to say, well, we can't do mental health because they're just using it to get out of work. But I think, well, maybe one person is doing it to get out of work and they're lying about it. But in order to not let people get out of work, like sacrifice the mental health of 10, maybe hundreds of people, right? Just because one person not doing the right thing. I never understood that logic.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a human factor involved, right? And I like to think that everybody is spot on, telling the truth and doing all that kind of stuff. But the numbers have it that doesn't always happen the way we would want it. But you know what? You can't take any of it for granted. I see now that some of the things, maybe the choices I made or the words that I said behind closed doors probably wasn't helpful to people's situations. And like I said, it took me almost a year or so out of the military to truly realize that and be like, man, what was I thinking? Like, why, and that's hard because like I said, I thought I did a pretty good job of taking care of people. But it is tricky. It really is tricky as to how, you just have to take it all serious, like with suicide or any of the other things, the mental health, you have to take it serious because you really just don't know. How many people have you heard, like when I was in my situation, people would say, you're the last person ever I thought about. And think about the folks, for us, this is common language, is to talk openly about what's going on inside the military and stuff. And I had a very big eye-opening thing. I was out at an event and I was asked to step up and speak to a group of ladies, and none of them were military affiliated, right? And I started talking about, what we're doing is 22 a day. And nobody in that whole audience knew what that meant. And it kind of shocked me because in our world, that's pretty much common language, I think. But I learned something that day because I'm like, you know what? There is that gap between the military experience and the civilian experience. Unless you're around a base or around groups talk about it, that 22 a day doesn't register as much as we talk about it. And it seems there. And so I started doing a straw poll. And every time I go into a group that I know is not mostly military related, I'll ask, hey, who here could tell me what 22 a day means? And there's sometimes I'll be in a fairly decent sized audience and not a single person will know. And finally somebody will say, I don't know, like veterans, like and they'll come back with it. And so it's a little shocking to me. And I think that's a divide that I didn't see before. And it's something that's really opened my eyes. And they're like, man, we got to do a better job of bringing everybody together so they truly understand it.
So mental health, it's like, this is my opinion again, like I said, a lot of people with mental health problems, they delay taking care of themselves. They always take care of other people, right? They always put other people first. And I'll take care of myself later on, or I don't need help. But in reality, like, how can you take care of other people? You're not taking care of yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. The better, you have to be good, because if you may be taking care of the other people, man, you could do it so much better if you were on your A game. You know what I mean? And that's where the struggle is, because, a lot of times folks with PTSD and some mental health and some other things going on, sometimes one of the responses to that, and I'm no medical doctor, but one of the responses to that, which is something that I chose, is to throw myself at my work and to immerse myself into something so I didn't really have to deal with my demons. And so we get in that place, and people see like, oh man, you're doing this great thing. Oh man, you're doing this awesome stuff, and you're doing this. But really, we're just hiding some of the things we need to work on. And at least that was the way it was for me. And even now, I had not too long ago, I'm with a friend of mine, and she's a doctor, and she looked at me and she said, "You're going to take 3 days off a week." And I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me? 3 days off a week? You've lost your mind." And she like grabbed my phone and set it down, and she goes, "No, that's doctor's orders." And I'm like, "I'll do my best. Maybe I'll start with like whatever," you know what I mean? But it was just one of those things to where when everybody starts saying you need to take better care of yourself, it's time to start listening. And I didn't do that for such a long time. And there's so many out there that don't. And I don't want to make it about me, but you just have to, for me, it was so hard to ask because of the position that I'd been in and who I thought I was. And when you finally, Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, I told my story about March, probably of last year. It was the first time I ever truly told and came clean on some of the things that I've been going on. I didn't come totally clean that day about everything, but I felt so empowered after that happened. And then when I started speaking to folks, I realized how much that opened them up to be able to have that conversation and maybe to get them help. And so it's never fun talking about these things, but I think by doing that and people opening up and talking, it enables people to be able to have that conversation and to maybe go to a different place. Before, where the older generation, we just didn't talk about anything. And I think now there's a process. And I think the first part is kind of letting folks know that you need that help and you're willing to reach out. I wish I could think of the quote, Clint Romachet, and I'll get it all wrong, but he said something, I've looked for it over and over, but I was watching a show. He's a Medal of Honor winner, right? He was part of that Outpost Keating and all that stuff. I hope I got all that right. And it's in some kind of show. It's not the prime character in it, but he says something like, I feel like it's my duty now to share this because I want people to understand what it is that we go through. And again, I'm paraphrasing and could be butchering it totally, but he basically was making the point that if we keep hiding all this stuff and we don't let it out and we don't tell people what's really going on, there's going to keep being that divide. And so it's not beating it down or, standing on a podium and saying, look, I'm this or I'm that or any of that stuff. It's more of, let's just be honest about who we are and what we're doing and take care of each other, and then use our talents and strengths, as Carrie would say, to move forward and help others along with helping ourselves.
Greg, can you talk about your brain surgery a little bit, like what the process of deciding to do brain surgery, why you had to have it? What was it like life and death situation, like the process of that, going through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I haven't put it all together. And so back in 1995 was my last trip to Saudi Arabia. And then 95, I went to Korea, and I always I had vertigo my whole career and ongoing and back and forth and migraines and stuff. And it kind of ebbed and flowed. Right. And, excuse me. And my last trip to Afghanistan in 2016, it got to where I really couldn't deal with it anymore. When I came back, I was getting what I call it activity-induced vertigo, right? To where when I would do something, even folding towels, I would get sick. Well, I went to a neurologist, and we went and did all this stuff and all the different ENT. I mean, I had like 7 doctors at one time. I was trying to figure things out. And finally they said, we found this 7th and 8th cranial nerve. We've got a blood vessel trapped around it. And it's called we had to do decompression of the 7th and 8th cranial nerve. And so you would think on a brain surgery, you'd be like, no, I need like 4 or 5 opinions, right?
At least.
Well, at that point, I'd been dealing with it for so long. You know what I said? Let's do it. Literally, like like a 3-minute conversation. And I said, let's do it. And because all I wanted to do was get better and be better, because I had about 4 years left in the military at that point. I wanted to make sure that, I'm like, man, I've been dealing with so long now, it's gotten bad. I want to get healthy. And it was my daughter's senior year. So going into her senior year, my oldest. And so I decided I was going to do it during the summer so that I would be healed and everything would be back on track by the time that her senior year started. So I went in, and so I was joking about it. I mean, literally, I was cracking jokes and, all these kind of crazy things. And I was watching like these videos on YouTube of what it was going to be like. Right. And I'd be like, oh, wow, oh man, like I was making, and they're like, Dad, this is serious. And I'm like, oh no. And so my family really, especially my children, they really thought it was like getting a tooth pulled, right? Because of the way I was making it. Well, then when I got into the thing and they had me all hooked up and these all these little things on me, and the nurse came in and said, okay, this is a really major surgery. Let's and that's when it hit me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it is. And then it came out bad on the backside, right? So what happened is this was my left ear was my good ear when I went into surgery. And it's totally deaf now from the surgery. So my ear stroked out because the blood vessel that was wrapped around the nerves was actually attached to them, and they didn't expect that. And so when they went to try to separate them, they hit the nerve. And that's my non-medical way of explaining it. But it basically made my ear stroke out. Now I'm totally deaf in my left ear, can't hear anything. And my right ear, I'm a maintainer, right? So my right ear wasn't anything to brag about either, so it was, but my left ear was my good one. So I came out of surgery totally deaf. And then fast forward from there, as I went through some treatment at the VA after I'd retired, they diagnosed me. They diagnosed me with what's called triple PD. And I'm not going to try to say but it's basically vertigo that doesn't deal with the inner ear. It's central neurological vertigo, right? And so it was curable. So that surgery, based on the new information I had, the surgery probably wasn't even required. And so now I went from what I call activity-induced vertigo to now I feel seasick 24/7. Right now,
and that's still going on for you?
24/7? Every day. Yeah, every day. So my whole left side of my head is numb. Like it starts like right here and goes all the way around. The surge of the scars back here behind here. And it just tingles and all day. And the other day, my meds got mixed up. And I take this stuff, Cymbalta, and I felt like somebody was turning the radio on and all the way off, on, off, all the way up, all the way down for like 2 days. And I realized that my pills had gotten mixed up because some of the things look similar, because I'm VA guy, I'm taking more than one pill, right? And the colors were similar, and I was taking the wrong thing. And I'm telling you, I was losing it. And so, but it was quasi curable. We'll never know. But I went in, thinking I want to get better. And when they came and told my wife after the surgery was over, hey, there's not much we could do. She said, in the waiting room, from what I know and what she's told me, is that she just sit there and cried, because my hope was really packed in that bag, right? Like this is really going to change my life. And it did, but not the way that I wanted it to, and that's what ultimately led me migraines and that vertigo and all that stuff. Was so much worse afterwards. That's what ultimately made me non-deployable and then getting medically retired.
What was the recovery period after the surgery?
I would say I'm still recovering, to be honest with you, but it's about 3 years is what the doctor told me. He said everything should come back. And there was a slight hope that maybe my hearing would come back in a 3-year period. From, if I remember correctly, was about how long it would take. But to really get back to work, I think it took me about 3 months, but I wasn't very functional. I don't remember. So I'll tell you that I don't remember my daughter's senior year, little bits and pieces of it. And I don't remember my last year in the military. Now, it's totally wiped out, and maybe in a little after, right? And then it started coming back. But I think about that year and I get like little flashes, of things that happened, but it's totally gone. Like I spent 28 years in the military, spent the 29th year. I don't remember much of that 12 months or better. I don't know the exact time frame, but again, that just coincided with my daughter's senior year. And so I don't remember much of that either, which is really, that's probably more frustrating than me not remembering my last year in.
Yeah, definitely. And do you still have to go do medical follow-ups like once a month or something?
Excuse me?
Do you have to do like medical follow-ups like once a month or something?
I do. Well, so right now, I go through, I see the pain person, I do follow-ups. I go to counseling every 2 weeks still, to work with that. I do get follow-ups. I just went to my neurologist the other day, which is, they diagnosed me in that, with the pseudo dementia. But they took blood work there, and then they took what do you call it? They're going to do another MRI, and just to make sure that things haven't progressed. But it's the good thing about it is what's going on now is that I know, you know what I mean? Like I didn't understand like what's going on. Like, so there's no signs of dementia, the deterioration of the neural, all that kind of stuff it looks good on the MRI and stuff, but it's because of major depression that really stemmed from after the surgery. All I wanted to be since then is just the guy I used to be. Right. And I just want to be like that guy that can multitask and get all these things and do it and that. And some days I'll get there, but sometimes it's just a little bit slower, right? So I have to be more methodical. And I have to really be conscious of what my day's like. If I start not feeling good, this whole side of my head will start hurting and aching and really feel numb and may go into a migraine. My face will actually droop a little bit, look like I had a stroke. And well, I did in the surgery, but it'll start, you can physically see it. And it's, I just have to really watch everything I do. Like I wake up in the morning, like, how's the day going to be? You know what I mean? Because there's no gray area. It's either super happy, super excited, super sad, super angry. There's like really none of that kind of in here. So when I think it's worked out well this last year for these type of interviews and stuff, because, I get on these and I'm like, man, I'm fired up. You know what I mean? But I am excited about what I'm doing. But it's also, unfortunately, simple things. Like I'll get super excited. I'll give you an example. I got really excited one night. I was having this business call and things were really good. And I go and tell my wife, and one thing in my house, a little side note is I'm not allowed to tell my wife, this is like a hard and fast rule, right? I can't tell my wife that I have an idea in the mornings until she has at least 2 cups of coffee, right? That's a solid, hard rule, right? So I got that entrepreneurial spirit. I got ideas flowing all the time, right? So I can't do that. Well, this happened to be in the evening. I had just come off a business call and it was really good. It was some really cool things happening. And I walked into the bedroom and I said, hey, guess what just happened? And she, jokingly kind of does the, because I've got this other idea. Well, we're laughing now, but in that moment where I was at, because I was so amped up, I lost it. Like I just, like it didn't fit the situation at all. But that's something she would do. We would normally laugh about. We would normally think, hey, that's hilarious. And I'm not aggressive. I'm not physical or anything, but I got so angry. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm just really like, I couldn't believe it. Well, luckily I've got strong kids, and that night I like to tell that, we had an intervention. And so when I got upset, I'm like, I just can't get anything right. Like I go into this woe is me kind of mentality and really frustrated. But my kids came in the room and they heard what was going on and they kind of surrounded me and they said, look, and we walked through it that night. So a testament to how strong they are and how strong they've been for me was that night when I was having this really, really bad moment. And there's been more than that, but they just rallied around me and said, Dad, you know what? My oldest daughter actually said to me on that night, she goes, Dad, I was saying, I can't get it right. And I get so frustrated and yada, yada, yada. And she was like, Dad, I want you to give me 10 good things that you've done. Like she's really pulling out all the psychology on me because I'm having one of those moments. But I'm getting better with those because of the fact that the doctors have kept working. I'm doing my part. I'm doing the counseling and stuff. And, I would say that my board and my business folks would say, don't put this out there. But you know what? This is who I am. And this is what I go through. And I don't think I hid it for so long. I'm not hiding it anymore. I am who I am. And I want to be honest and open with people. You know what I mean? And I want folks to feel like they can do that with me. And it's been happening. And it's hard to talk about. I don't like talking about it. I really don't. As much as I do talk about it, I don't enjoy it because I'm sure my family doesn't like hearing me talk about, what went on the days after surgery and all that stuff. But I think we have to have that honesty, and that's where we make progress, and that's where we move forward, and that's what I want folks to know. I want folks to know that, man, I put my shoes on, even though I had a couple extra stripes and stayed in a long time and all that kind of stuff, and now I may have a CEO or a founder at my title. I'm Greg Bicknell. All that stuff is just because what society has dictated. We have to. Sure, whatever. I would just rather like Greg. That's my title, Greg. You know what I mean? Friend.
Greg, so how often do you have to deal with these incidents?
I don't know. It kind of ebbs and flows. You know what I mean? Like with my head, and I'll tell you. So every day is different. And they'll ask me, like the doctors ask, like, what about this? If it rains outside, or if it's going to rain outside, I could be a weather person because, my head feels that. It's like a big barometer. And on those days, I may be a little bit more edgy. The ones where I really kind of fly off, it's been a lot better here in the last 6 months, I would say, because I've realized that I've been working on it. I don't do it, and even now in the last 3 months, now I've got a team around me that says, hey, they're like, we've got to keep your flow. Like, we got to keep your peaks and valleys. We got to keep to where you're good. Like today, I didn't do much all day. And my team said, you know what? You're going to be on that thing at 4. We need you in top, we need you ready to rock and roll. So today I took it easy. And I haven't been doing that before. So I've got so many people around me that are on my team that I don't know, but I know it was pretty regularly before. But like I said, in the last 3 to 4 months, it's really subsided. But I go through every day, I go through a moment where I feel like I could probably fall down because I'll lose my balance, or whatever, because the vertigo symptoms. And my eyes, from what changed during that, is I really feel like I'm looking like, how when you look out a window, and you kind of see through it and you see stuff. That's kind of what it feels like now for me, is that I'm looking through my eyes, not out of them. So it's like it's hard to explain, but every day is different. And so, we'll leave sometimes and the weather will start changing and my wife will look over at me and say, you want to go home? So sometimes I have to plan my day according to the weather patterns, and that's tricky, especially, today. If it would have been a rainy day today, I may have had, I would have had to make a decision on whether or not I said, hey, Jason, I know we've been, looking to do this for a couple of weeks. And there's been times where I didn't do that and it was detrimental, right? And so now I've had to learn how to live within myself. And that's what this new team that's around me is teaching me is, what, man, you're strong and you're good when you're doing this, but when you're not on your A game, we just need you to take care of yourself. And that's what a lot of us, I think, have to understand. I haven't been very good at it, but I'm sure trying to learn.
Greg, so when you did your brain surgery, did they do any kind of like cognitive brain test before and after the surgery that compare results?
Well, no, not really. It was more of, this is what we found on your MRI. So with triple PD, it's kind of one of those things where they don't find anything else. Like, I'd been to an ENT, nothing. I'd had the MRI, they really didn't see much. I know there's a joke in there somewhere, right? And all of these different tests, but nothing really came back. And that's really kind of the core. And the difference, like with triple PD, and again, I'm not a medical professional, but I do deal with this a lot, right? Because I read up on it, and try to learn what's going on with me. But my vertigo wasn't a spinning type of vertigo. My vertigo, the world moves around me, right? So it wasn't like I was sitting there spinning. Sometimes I would, but for the most part, it was like I was in this just amazingly bad earthquake to where everything's just shaking and I don't feel, I didn't feel comfortable, and I would lose my balance. I'd feel nauseous. Now, when it happens now, first thing that happens is my left ear, my deaf ear starts ringing super loud. And then I get this cold sweat that I'm sweating for no reason. We could be in a house, it could be in an igloo, and I'll just start sweating. And at that point, I know I've got to go sit down. I've got to go take it easy. And then from there, it can go a lot of different directions. It can go into a migraine. It can go into dizziness. It can go into all that stuff. But like I said, it all just depends. So
Greg, let's talk some more about veteran suicides. Of course, both know the 22 number.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question for you. Like, suicide is that's not a veteran program. It's a societal program.
Yeah, you're right.
And you might not know this. Are there any stats out there that compare like veteran suicides, like the regular population suicide, is like per capita or percentage, things like that? Have you ever seen anything like that?
So from and again, I'm trying to go off memory here. Veteran, we're about 1.5 times more likely than the general civilian population. It's hard to find the statistics on like the police officers and stuff because it's kind of close hold, I would say. At least I can't find it. But the assumption is, based on some of the professionals within the field that I talk to, is that it's probably very closely related to what the military is. So about 1.5 times, right? Except for us, the difference between, you hear all these organizations and they talk about veterans and first responders, right? I even say it. But the difference that I had someone break down to me is, with veterans, we're already out of the military. And with first responders, they're still in. They're still doing their job. They're still actually on active. So the conversations that I can have directly with a veteran, we can talk about it directly, where with them, I may have to massage it a little bit and go into the coaching aspect or get to know them, so we may not know, and I don't, again, not an expert in that realm, but I just know that with a veteran and we can have that conversation directly because it's so, but with the first responders that are still working in their field, they were like where you and I were at. I believe, again, this is just me, my opinion, is they're kind of where you and I were at back 20 years ago. You know what I mean? To where we didn't want to say anything because if a cop if a police officer goes out and gets into something and they find out he's got some kind of mental health, there may be a situation to where, that shows up on the news. And now where does that go for the department? So I think there are places that are doing it right. I think there's places that are really allowing their folks to go get the help. I don't know if that's happening everywhere. Again, there's a factor, right? And I'm not doing the broad brushstroke. I just know that based on my experience and my conversations, there is a time to where it's a little more hesitant for the folks that are not veterans that are in the other populations, because they are still in the midst of their careers and they haven't retired. So it's a little bit of a change.
Of course, it's a tough problem to solve. But do you think the solution can fit like every demographic? Is the same solution for veterans, same solution for veteran first responders, same solution for quote unquote like regular civilians? Or does each demographic need its own separate suicide prevention solution?
Yeah. So when I say, I think we're in that place where it's at suicide action. I think that's the thing. We talk about prevention. We've got all these amazing things that we come up with, but taking action is the one, right? And the action that I think really is connecting with folks, right? And so this organization that, I've been building and the team's been building is really to get folks connected across the country. So that people, feel they're not just worried about the isolation and suicide, but we put on events and things that gives them a reason to think in different terms, that they want to be around for this. And then when we get folks connected across the country that, we come to our events, I'll be like, hey, give somebody a call. Who have you thought about that you haven't called in a long time that you would just like to hear from? Well, let's search their number and let's go give them a call, go outside, make this phone call. And so we get in that kind of mentality. There's this app out there. I'm going to tell you what it is, because I think maybe your audience would. There's an app that's called OK. It's OK app, but it's got 5 numbers on it. And I'm not getting paid for this. It's not a promotional thing. It's something that I just found. And I wish my phone's going to come on. I'll tell you exactly what it's called. But you can put 5 numbers in it. It's something I stumbled across. You put 5 numbers in it, and all it is a quick tap of your screen, and it notifies those 5 people that you're having a tough time. That's it. It's that simple. And I thought, man, that is like one of the coolest, most amazing apps. And so now when I've started doing these events, I'll tell people about it. Like, hey, go ahead. Who's your 5? That's kind of the question I'll ask, because I think it's an amazing. I'm pulling up my phone right now because I turned it off so that it wouldn't keep ringing on my phone book. But it's called Not Okay. That's the name of the app.
Okay.
It kind of looks like, if you can see it, that little sign right there.
I got it.
And so it's called Not Okay. And it gives you 5 people. You literally put their numbers in, you connect with them, they accept it. And then when you're having a rough time, man, you just hit the button, and it notifies all 5. So now you got 5 chances of someone that'll reach back out to you really quickly. And I thought that was just so cool, because it's not 100 people, it's 5 people, and you get to pick the 5. And it's not a medical provider. It may be if they want to be on the list, but it's 5 people. And I thought, man, that is just brilliant. And it's so simple. Sometimes we make things too complicated. That was an app that I thought, that is so simple. It's just, man, that's going to save lives. That app is. And again, I'm not getting paid for this. I just stumbled across it, but I see stuff that works, and then I try to add it to what I put out there, because when something is good, it's not about whether it's them or my organization or whoever. It's about getting help to the people that need help in a location where they need it, right? Who cares whose sticker or name or organization is on the front? It's about the end result, not about what the name of the organization is that's pushing us to get there.
Greg, how do we help people who don't want to be helped, or say they don't need help?
That's man, another great question. And I'm stalling because I'm trying to think my way through it, right? I think I look at it a little bit differently. I think someone that truly doesn't want to be helped, then they have to make that choice, right? But I do think there's people like me that are a lot out there that are on the fence that say, I don't want help, because they don't know how to approach or talk about it, right? And they don't know how to say, hey, look, I need help, because they don't know the response. And so when I was in, I would tell people, when someone comes to your door, if you don't, as a leader, if you don't know, the person that comes to your door, if they don't know basically what your response is going to be, you're not consistent enough, right? So they have to know what to expect of, because when things are going good or bad, they have to know where you're going to be and where you're going to stand when they need you to be there standing, right? And so when people know that, and you present that all the time, and that's who you are, when people are kind of on that thing and they just want to have a conversation, sometimes it's just really listening. And the people that are on the fence, and people that say they don't want help, but really down inside, they just want someone to care. They just want someone to be there next to them when they're going through their tough times. and to be there for them and to truly be connected and show that you love them and show them that you're there for them and you're not there for any other reason other than just to be there. I think that gives them the opportunity more so than just saying, oh, he don't want to be helped, let's move on. And so I don't think you can force anybody. We can't make anybody do anything, but we can sure give them different options when they know that we mean it. And I think that's what I try to do these days. I'm the guy that used to try to, still sometimes am the guy that tries to put that square peg in the round hole, but I really think that when you truly show people that the option is different, and that when they do get a hold of you and they call you, or they just want to sit and talk, that you're really there for them and not for any ulterior motive. You're there to make sure that they're okay. You're there to make sure, and not because you're trying to get them to give a donation or show up or do a video or whatever else you're trying to do. When they truly know that you care and they truly know that you're there for them, that's when I think the door opens and they're willing to have that conversation that maybe they wouldn't have for anybody else. And that's what I live, that's who I want to be. That's who Greg Bicknell wants to be, is the person that maybe in my organization and everybody really is, that if someone truly is in need, that they know that they can reach out to me. There's not going to be any judgment. There's not going to be any, oh my goodness, I'm going to have this conversation. I'm not going to make it any better, any worse, or any better than what it really is. And we're going to work through it and figure out a way forward together. And I'm not just going to say, make an appointment. I'm not just going to say, here's an AFI, you shouldn't have done that. I'm going to say, let's figure this out together, because together that's a connection. Once you have that connection with a veteran, and really anybody, I think, that's when you can really make the progress. And I think that's what we're missing sometimes.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, like you said, like you can't, you have to be able to, like, not have any judgment, right? Because, nobody's going to want to come to you if you think you can be judged. And also, it has to be a bad thing. You open up someone and they say, oh, what do you have to be depressed? You have to be depressed, right? You have a great life. Or or they say before, I would never thought of you to be depressed or doing this kind of stuff. And I can't imagine how many people don't admit to stuff because they think that's going to happen to them.
Yeah. And it's hard, we're proud people, I always, and for, so in the military, we have to think that we're going to be able to take the hill. We have to think that we can pack up our bags in the Air Force and fly around the other side of the world and in 72 hours be flying an operation that could save lives, right? You have to have that. You have to have the swagger. You have to be able to think it can be done. And sometimes that puts us in that state that, man, we don't want to feel, the quote unquote air quotes weak. But, that is a cliche statement, but, to me, there's really nothing stronger than someone saying that I need help. Because, man, out of everything I've done in my life, that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do, was to say, I need help. It was a struggle. And I didn't even really say it. When it really happened, Kerry Stewart reached out to me and he just said, brother, you're coming out here to Kansas City. You know what I mean? It was probably not quite that direct, but that's the way it felt, because he said, man, I see you and we've been friends for a long time. And I know, I don't, you're looking like you need something. And I went out there to Warriors Ascent and they did some amazing things for me. And I'll forever be grateful for that. But it was somebody like that. That's that call I'm talking about. He really knew who I was, right? Not just a face, but he knew who I was. And I had a guy that called. I'm going to tell you this quick one. That had a guy that on LinkedIn, he said, I don't remember what the post was, but he said, I just want someone to listen, or I've tried to talk, but nobody will listen. And I text back and I said, well, give me a shot. And I gave my phone number and he called, and I was sitting in the office that I'm in now. And this guy talked for 3.5 hours. And he just wanted to be heard. And at the end of it all, you know what he wanted? He had a small farm up in North Carolina, and the guy just wanted people to come visit and see it. And we're going to make that happen. But he was so proud of what he had been doing. He had had his own challenges and he had done some of this really cool stuff, but he just wanted to be heard. And some of the things he said, you could tell some of it was frustration, some of it was just pure anger, some of it was love. And but he just, for 3.5 hours, this guy just really sit there and just kept talking and talking. And I didn't say, hey, I got an appointment. There were some things that were going on that day. And my family came out. I think they were going somewhere. And I was just like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing today. And, but the guy just wanted to be heard. He just wanted to, and he said, one of the things that he said that really struck me, that really hit a chord. He said, I got all these organizations that want me to come to them. Who's coming to see me?
That's a great point.
And that, man, that hit me. And I said, and that's kind of where we're at now with this camaraderie exchange, that we're doing, is that we want to be able to go to and with people that are of like mind, to go into organizations around the country and say, we're bringing this package to you kind of a la carte. You can pick what you think is needed in the area. We can bring our whole package. And we're there to help and go to the locations, maybe not every little small town, but we can do it regionally, and we can do it. And that's where we're trying to grow. We want people that really think of more themselves. If I have a K9 person, I want the K9 person to know where to get everything. They may have to think a little bit outside of themselves and what their organization stands for. They need to know where to help this person as a whole system. If a person is doing therapy or doing this or different modalities or whatever, I want them to understand more than just of what they're doing and have their mind focused on, how does this make me money? You know what? It might make you money, but I want people to get help. I want to take it to where they're at. That's what I want to do. And I don't like, if somebody's got something going on, I'll tell this to your listeners, if there's something's going on out there right now, and you think that my services could be helpful, and my board and my business partners are going to hate me for this. Maybe not, but if there's something that's going on and I can be of assistance, and you think I can help, and we can sit down and have a chat about it and the schedule and all that kind of stuff, I will wear your shirt. I don't need to wear any of mine. I got a couple of companies. And if it leads to, I told one of my business partners the other day, listen, if it leads to helping people, I'm in. That's where I'm at. You don't have to know anything else about Greg Bicknell. If it leads to helping people, and it's not illegal, immoral, or going to get me in trouble or get me grounded or get me divorced, I'm in. And that's where I want folks to be, is I want us to think about something that's bigger than kind of what our own little area. And I'm helping make sure that we can get the people that need to get to locations where they can work on their own nonprofits, where I help them get to where we're going to do these events. And if I can help you out, I will put on your shirt. I mean, really, if it's something amazing, I may see if you want to work with us or work with me, or I'll come work with you. I don't care. I just want people that need the help to get the help. That's what I want.
Greg, can you talk some about what you do as the Air Force Wounded Warrior Ambassador?
Yeah. So as an ambassador, what they do is they put me on the they put me on the road, and I go out. Like I said, I'll go back to, I've only done a few events, and I want to get into a lot more, but we go out to bases, and really we promote what the Air Force Wounded Warrior program is about. They've got an empowerment and transition group that helps folks transition. And maybe that's how I got into the NYU Future Lab. A guy from the Air Force Wounded Warrior program got in there. They have a readiness, a war team, a wellness and resiliency program where they do these events and things like that, and help folks get better. They have a recovering airman mentor program, which I'm also a recovering airman mentor, to where folks that are struggling or getting out of the military or maybe not know what the next step is, they assign them to the mentors, and then we help them work through their concerns that they may have going into civilian life, or even maybe getting back into the work, or when they're going through, they just have someone they can bounce it off of that may have a little more experience than they have. And so with the ambassador program, we go and try to tell everybody about all these things that are available, because a lot of people don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's a huge, amazing, man, it's such a good program that's in, and it's available. There are some, when you're going through, not everybody qualifies to be, a wounded warrior status kind of thing. But what they do, what they did for me personally, I can't put a dollar sign or a number or it's just, there's so much available that the team at the Wounded Warrior program is doing, that it's AFW2, and, they, man, it's just the team, I get almost misty eyed, because they have helped me. They were a part of the whole team with Carrie at Warriors Ascent and the AFW2 program. Between those two organizations, and man, they've helped me to what I believe is thrive. And I'm going to keep pushing hard and harder, because, but it's really about just going out and connecting with people. Again, it's what is available. If you're struggling, what can we do to help? And they're trying to really make it to where folks know what's available. And you just look up AFW2, and it'll explain a lot more, but there's 4 or 5 programs in there. I won't try to quote it, but it's, empowerment and transition, recovering airman mentor, wellness and resiliency. There's the ambassador program, and I'm sure I'm missing one. There's adaptive sports, and all of that. So it's just, there's a lot of options. And if you need it, reach out and ask. And if you don't know if you qualify, heck, let them make the determination. Don't try to make it yourself. Just reach out. And someone like me, if you think you are a wounded warrior, or you think that you may qualify, I can nominate somebody. So when I meet people, I'll just let them know and say, hey, here's a person I want you to look into. I've talked to them. and see if they qualify, see where they're at, or see what we can do to help them. So it's a resource that I have when I'm helping folks in my daily ventures and daily work.
Greg, from your point of view, why do so many military veterans have such a tough time transitioning?
You know, that is so I think where it is, so in the military, when you retire, right? And if you go back to your base a week later, I'm going to ask you, after you retired or moved on and you go back to your base, and you go into your old duty section, what do they do? Why are you here?
Yeah.
You don't have anything better to do, right? So you have this.
Yeah, you're retired now. What are you doing here?
Yeah. Are you trying to come back and tell me how to do my job? So we're such proud people on that side. Is that when we do come back, that's been our friends in our community for me, 29 years. And now that we retire and we go back to transition, you're not really truly welcomed, even though you're good friends, you're not welcomed in the confines of where you always were, right? But the other part is that as you start transitioning, in the military, and I deal with this, I get frustrated sometimes, is when something needs to be done and I said, you need to do this, there was a likelihood it was going to get accomplished because there were repercussions on the backside if it didn't happen. To where when I work with independent contractors and whoever it is, and again, there was stuff that where military folks didn't come around either, but there was repercussions. I had a mechanism to make sure that people were doing what they're supposed to. Well, in the civilian sector, they don't quite have that. So I think a lot of veterans, I'll speak for me. I would get frustrated when someone would tell me something and commit to it and then not do it, or they would give me a product that they knew themselves was less than stellar, but they were just like, whatever. It didn't feel like the commitment was there. It didn't feel like it was there. And that's not everywhere. Like I said, I went out and went to Draken, and Draken was full of, some colonels and chiefs, and we still worked like we did when we were in. And my transition was a little bit different because I was like 85% military. So I didn't start my transition until after really like a true transition in the civilian sector, until I had been out for like a year and a year and a half, I guess. But I think that's where the struggle is, that it's just different, is when someone doesn't do, the repercussions aren't there. And we knew inside the military that if someone didn't do exactly what they were supposed to, or they didn't put forth their best effort, there was a mechanism in place. And sometimes for me in the civilian sector, it doesn't seem that that's the case. It seems like sometimes that, and it's sometimes it's counterproductive, because, 85% on the civilian sector, and we'll figure out the kinks where, if I was doing somebody's EPR, heck, I put people through boot camps just to do performance reports, right? We would stay 12 hours because I wanted to make sure it got right, and they're there. Well, and then you get out and you realize that the documentation, you're not gonna, if you have to make everything perfect, you're gonna go broke. You know what I mean? If you take the time for we're talking about revenue generation versus readiness. And we're all based in the military, we're based on readiness, not revenue generation. And so that pot of money is different now. Everything you do has a number value associated with it, an hour value, a monetary, a time frame. To where in the military, it was just get it right, do it right the first time or do it again. And sometimes on the other side, it's like, 85%, as long as it's not safety or something like that, maybe we can be okay with that. And that's something that would, I think a lot of folks, when we first got, it drove me crazy. I'm like, but it's not perfect. Like, I'm not putting my name on that. Are you crazy? Like, that's my reputation. And I'd get that look like, seriously, man, it's like a piece of paperwork. Like, you know what I mean? Really? And
yeah,
so.
I got two quick stories, Greg. So my first job post-Army, like I purposely, I'm not gonna be any type of personality, do checklists. I'm gonna calm, slow down, calm stuff down, try to fit in right.
Mm-hmm.
Like after 60 days, the boss told me, hey, Jake, you're doing a great job. Appreciate what you're doing, but I need you to slow down a little bit, right? You're doing too much. I thought to myself, boss, man, I'm working like 30% capacity. Like you work day on, day off. And second story, we started these weekly meetings, right? And they told the engineer, hey, engineer, I need you to do these things. It needs to be done by 2 weeks. The engineer said, I might be able to get started in a month on this. I almost passed out, right? Like, what?
I know. Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I know. It's like, really? I'll get that done by Tuesday, right? But then,
exactly, yeah.
But then sometimes with us, we really have that mentality because, like I said, you have to believe that you can take that hill, you can do that stuff. And so this is funny. Perfect. So the guy, I was at the bank the other day, and I'm trying to set up some, two accounts. And I came in and I told the guy, I said, look, I need to get these set up. And the guy's been slow rolling me, the guy I've been talking to. And so I'm coming to you. It's a different, same bank organization, but a different physical building, right? And the guy looked at me and he goes, well, when did he contact you? And I'm like, it was like 4 days ago, right? This was recent. Like, this is like in the last couple of weeks. And the guy goes, are you prior military? And I was like, well, why'd you ask that? And then I kind of hit me. I was like, is that what, you know, he goes, oh yeah. He goes, you military guys are totally different. He said, there'll be people here that do stuff. They just expect it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks. You know, you expect it to be done by the end of the day and our inbox is cleaned out and it's ready to rock and roll. And I just started laughing, you know, but this, I mean, literally, this is within the last 10 days, last 2 weeks. And the guy he was like, yeah. And he goes, well, you know, it's only been 4 days. Just go ahead and follow up with him. And I'm like, but I can't wait, you know, like I need it done now, you know. And we just had a good chuckle about it. He was like, man, he goes, as soon as you said that, I knew you had to have that military background, you know?
Yeah. Or like, are you do something and like, man, it's been like 2 weeks and it's only been like 2 days.
Yeah,
Well, so long. More like Jason, it was literally 2 days ago, maybe like not even 2 days, maybe 34 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No kidding. All the time. And that's been the biggest. So that's been one of the biggest changes for me. Like I said, when I had that surgery, I have to slow down now. Right. And so I was talking to my counselor and I said, you know, I want to check this and that. And he goes, Greg, you know what the problem with you is? And like, he didn't really say it like that, but this was the context. He was like, you know what? He said, most people that when we kind of get them on some meds, we try to get them at this level where they function. He said, you want like a magic bean. He said, you want this bean to make you produce, not even as like you used to, but better than you used to. He said, that's not even what it's really for. You know, he said, we're trying to do this. And it was a very casual conversation, but he was like, dude, you just want like a magic bean, man. He's like, you know, you want to go back to that guy that was producing, could work, you know, this and that. And he's like, we got it, man. You know, we got to slow down a little bit. But I thought it was kind of funny. He was like, yeah, you just looking for that magic bean. I'm like, yeah, I am. You know, give me one, find it. Tell me what it is.
And do it in 24 hours, right?
Yeah. In 24 hours or less, or I'm going to be upset. Yeah, let's make it happen.
So Greg, what advice do you have for people getting out of the military in this day and age?
So while you're in, never turn down a training opportunity. I think that's big.
Oh man, that's so big. I know so many people like turn down training opportunities, not realizing how it's going to pay off for them after they get out. That's big right there.
It doesn't matter what it is, because you never know quite where it's going to pay off, you know. But, you know, get something and get that education, you know, but trade school and learning your vocation, learning your job, getting that actual experience and all that stuff, that's huge. But make sure that there's a plan, right? And so a lot of folks that go through the mid board, it happens really quick and you don't know what you're going to do. So what I do when I work with folks, I say, okay, well, what do you want to do? You know, and go to TAPS, the Transition Assistance Program, not the tragedy program, but the transition assistance that you have to go through. Go to that a year out, you know, and understand what it is that your options are, and then really kind of internalize it. And then when you get about 6 months out, go through it again, or 4 months out, go through it again, because then your mind is working on what do I need to prep. And so one thing that happened to me early in my career is, I think I was a staff sergeant. I was serving in quality assurance at the time. And there was a special job that came up that somebody called me about, and they asked me for a resume. And so I had to build a resume at that point early on in my career. I think it was probably around 2001, and I didn't retire till 19. But it forced me to write that resume, and then I had to keep it up. So when it got time for me to move on and I was retiring, there's a lot of things that was already done, because luckily the folks that were in my life and in my path, my supervisors and stuff, had taken care of me, and they had kind of prepped me. But still, you know, I don't remember that last year, right? And so I would just tell people that, you know, you never undervalue education. Never, ever undervalue your connections with folks, because as you're in as long as I was, you know, you get a chance and you get to meet people, and you soon find out that your reputation precedes and follows you. So when you go to a new base, if you don't think like I did it, when we had new folks coming in, I would call and check on the ones, especially the ones that were going to be in a leadership role. You know, I'd call and be like, hey, how's this person performing? Hey, what position? You know, I would look and ask all those questions. And when you get around for a while and you start knowing the same people, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have the same opinion about me. But as you start talking to folks, you understand that reputation that they have is pretty much consistent. And so that follows you, but it also precedes you. And so when folks are out there, it doesn't mean to be a yes man. What I'm saying is, when you do something, if you're going to get angry, have a reason behind it. If you're going to, and if you're going to do something, make sure that it's not just serves your own purposes, that it serves the greater good of the folks that you're in charge of or you're leading. That doesn't mean, the education, you have an opportunity to do bigger and better things if you get your education. But also if you go get that technical certification, whether you got A&P, if you're if you're a maintainer, airframe and power plant, or if you go get your IT certifications and all that, because that makes you more valuable. So the training, you're getting the experience, which is a big part of that. And then you get the education, and then now you get the opportunity, and it leads to a lot better things for those that don't plan. So I think that would be, and don't ever be afraid to ask the question. When you see these things popping up, just learn what's out there, and then maybe reach out and find that mentor. I think the further along that we go in our career, the more that we need that person that'll be a mentor, that'll tell you when you think like, and my wife was one. I was complaining one time, oh, these people aren't doing this, and I was getting one of those sad, and she basically said, so, what I mean? She's like, I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, either fix it or deal with it. But it doesn't come in this house. And she wasn't being mean. Basically, what she was telling me was, you have an opportunity every day to either make your life better or worse. You have an opportunity every day to affect those around you in a good way or a bad way. You get to choose that. And when you're getting ready to get out of the military, you will find out that some of those situations, and I've had this happen, is some of those folks, I'm like, man, that company, goodness gracious, I'm never getting a job with them. But I was doing a good job, except I was being thorough. They didn't like it because I wasn't on their team. But when I went to retire, they reached out to me and said, yeah, now you can be on our team. So, that concept of, man, they're going to hate me, do your job. Whatever job you got, go and do it the best you can, because someone's going to, if it's one of those jobs that nobody wants and you make that thing, you do it really good, guess what? You just did a job that was great that nobody else even wants. So what's going to happen when you leave that job? And with those contractors you're working with, don't just do your job and do it well, to the best of your abilities. And then when you get out, you'll get to see what that changes. So that education, I think for me, is number one. Make sure that you're prepared, and even the basic stuff. And that just means listening to the advice and talk to the old guys, and talk to the folks that say, this is what you should do, because there's a lot of wisdom there. Us old guys sometimes actually know one or two things. We don't know everything, but there's a lot of folks that are retiring that really have no plan. I remember having a chief back when I was younger, and I said, what are you going to do when you retire? He's like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? I don't know. I'm retiring. He was retiring like 3 weeks. Like, I don't know. I don't have any idea. I'm like, and that baffled me. And I just think, just be prepared. But I think the biggest one is make sure you don't ever turn down education. Make sure you have a plan, and then make sure that whatever that plan is, you do your due diligence on the research. Whether the job that you want requires education, there's the ONET out there and different things that you can look into that tells you exactly what that career field. It tells you what it's going to pay, what part of the country, and all that kind of stuff. That information is out there. You just have to ask for it.
Yeah, for those who don't know, what Greg just said, ONET is the Department of Labor ONET. Basically, you can type in any job, janitor, plumber, software developer. It tells you all the skills, tasks, and tech you need for that job according to the Department of Labor. It's a great asset.
It is.
So Greg, talk about your saying, people first, people always.
Yeah. So, the mission first, I think, people first. So when you take care of people, people take care of you. The mission is going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's not the aircraft that makes the aircraft fly. It's not the security forces that keeps the car and the gun that, or whatever they're in, their uniform, that makes people not come and breach security or whatever. It's the people. And when you take care of them and they want to come to work and they want to show up, and it may be rough, but some of the tightest knit communities, you talk about like the Marines and stuff, we'll all agree that, their basic training is probably not like the Air Force's, right? But those they're proud, and the Air Force does its part, but they all have these different reasons and what they do. But it's one of those things that if you take care of the people are going to take care of you. Because at the end of the day, when you're out of the military and you move on, what's left when your kids move on? If you're married, it's your wife or your significant others or your friends. It's not the mission. When you leave, when I went to go retire, as soon as I said I was going to retire, they were looking for my replacement. So as much as I didn't think the Air Force was going to be able to survive without Greg Bicknell, Chief Bicknell, it did, and it's doing, doing okay, doing pretty well. But you have to realize what's there afterwards, right? And so I think when you take care of people and allow them to take care of themselves and allow them to take care of their families, then their families are more committed to helping getting things done. And like I said, I wasn't always good at that. I was always super mission focused when I thought I was really taking care of people. But I sometimes looked at taking care of the people as helping get them promoted and helping, making sure they knew all their technical stuff and more mission focused. And it took me about a year out to realize, you know what, sometimes I missed the mark. And that's hard to admit. I mean, it's really hard to admit. But the people first, people always, and the mission just happens. The mission will take care of itself. If you take care of the people, the mission will take care of itself.
Hey, Greg, back to the veteran transition. And I think this is what a lot of people mess up on, where they're retiring, just getting out. I think too many military veterans, like, they don't set themselves up economically to succeed, right? So like, I know so many people, like a year out, they'll buy a new house or they'll buy a brand new car. And I know, I think the myth is like, when you leave the military, you lose 50% of your pay. No, really, you lose like 75%, right? Because you're not getting housing no more, right? And not only that, I learned this hard lesson that your pay actually gets taxed at a higher rate out of the military, right?
That's right.
And so people like, buying cars, buying houses, doing all these big plans, planning vacation, and then they're forced to take a job they hate, they don't like. And that's the reason why, like, I think veterans like have like 2 jobs in 2 years or something crazy like that.
Right. And they say that when you get out, the most important job is the first one, because when you get that first one, you get out, it kind of shows the employers, and I don't know who they is, that I'll just say that's what Greg says. Right. So, but you get that first job and you show you can do something. I think to me, it proved myself that I can do something outside of the military. So it was a confidence booster. But I think also it shows other employers when you decide to move on, that you're capable of performing outside of the military. And so I think in that respect, we have a lot of skill sets. There's a lot of soft skills that military folks have that really, as a young age, we were put in charge of a lot of people. And so as you move on and when you get out and you're thinking, man, I got to make sure I have a house. I got to make sure I have a good car. I got to make sure I have all this stuff. You're kind of going through the rack and stack list. But now your pay changes and maybe they miss a couple paychecks. And it's like, well, what happens now, right? And now you got stress at home. You've just retired. Your career and life has totally changed. You don't have the friends that are around you, which leads to, big troubles. And so the financial side of it, I think that's a huge stressor. It absolutely is. And I think that when you start thinking about it, don't think, what do I need to survive? Think, what can I afford? And what can I minimize down to until I grow back into the place that I'm at? You know what I mean? And so realistically, if it's 55%, you get half your pay, well, you got to make up the other 45, right? And so how do you do that? Do you go and take a job you hate? I don't know. Maybe you do, but in all actuality, it's going to let you go to the next job, right? But I think also in the military, the one thing that was a big thing for me was, I was always changing. I think I had this, at one of the bases I was at, I actually had this box, right? So I moved to go to these different jobs, and this box really had nothing in it that I used, but I would grab this box full of like papers and whatever, and I would take it to my next desk and I would set it on. I think in one day I moved 3 offices, right? So some might say I kept getting fired, but it was literally like, it became a joke, like, Greg, get your box, you're moving to QA today, or Greg, get your box, you're moving over here. And but I think when people get ready to transition, it's just thinking about, what do I need to be able to provide for my family? And what does that nest egg look like in case I have to, live on my own? So have that, 3 months of expenses, have that, maybe even more, what you're comfortable with. If you have a house, you don't want to get out and then automatically have that big thing that happened. All of a sudden, if you have a septic, it goes out, or you got a plumbing leak, or you got a roof, whatever. And now all of a sudden you're in negative digits. And so I think that is important. And I think it's important to get a hold of that earlier in the career, and to realize that, hey, there's going to come a time when I retire. At that point, I may not be in the same shape physically. I may not be in the same place mentally as I once was. And so I need to make sure I'm prepping for that, because, as much as a lot of us, me included, think I'm invincible, I didn't think I was going to go into surgery and the next day come out and my life be totally changed and shaken upside down. I was looking for that magic bean, that magic surgery, that magic whatever, and then it went south. And luckily I had, taken care of some things, and and was able to survive and was able to thrive. And I got a job within 3 months. I was planning on going to school full time and got offered a job that they really took good care of me. But that doesn't always happen. And I think I could have done a better job of planning, because sometimes I just felt like, it's been going good for 28 years. What, we're just going to keep riding this wave, right? And you get that certain standard of living and lifestyle, and then you get out and you realize, oh man, I got to pay taxes on that, $1,500 a month they give me for housing, because it's no longer tax free. And when I buy food, it's actually going to come out of that 300 and something bucks they give me, and it's going to be taxable and all of that. So I do think it is quite the kick in the pants.
Yeah. I know with me, if people ask me for advice, I always tell them, I don't know your economic situation, but you can take a break, right? Whether it's 2 weeks, a month. I remember my first job, I was like working on the day, my last day of the actual military, right? I was thinking to myself, what have I done? Like, what am I doing? Like, I started working like a day earlier. It was a double dip, get money and stuff, of course, you got to find a job. I'm like, man, what am I doing? Why am I working the last day of the military? I should be out with my family and friends, partying, drinking, but I'm here at work. Like, so I started telling people, like, try to take some kind of time off if you can, right? To kind of decompress.
I took 3 months, and I don't, so, I'd saved some and had it all set up and ready to rock and roll. But, in that 3 months that I took off, my goodness, I had to get a job, because if I'd have kept spending at the rate that I was, I might've been calling Jason up and saying, I need a room, because, I had done all this for years. I'd been on the road, and now I had this 3 months that I could spend with my family. And I'll tell you, I was ready for a job at the end of that 3 months, because it was just so different than what I'd been doing. My life had changed. But I had a blast. Like we traveled and we did a lot of really cool stuff. And I probably spent 10 times more than I should have in that time frame. But I had planned for that. You know what I mean? I knew that we were going to take that, road trip. I knew that we were going to go, and, my daughter, when we took that long road trip in 2016 that we were talking about earlier, that 4,500 mile road trip, that's when my daughter decided, when we were there in Flagstaff, that she was going to go to Northern Arizona University. So after she graduated and we took them there, I actually drove her before I moved down to Lakeland to go to this new job in August. And I drove her to the Northern Arizona University there in Flagstaff, and we made a little mini vacation out of that too. But it was just one of those things that, man, don't do what I did in those first 90 days, man. That is not suggested. I mean, have fun, but man, I wish I had some of that money back. But man, we had a lot of fun.
Greg, let's talk about this next. So there are so many nonprofits for the military veteran, right, community. Like there's like a crazy amount of number, right?
Yeah, 4,500 it is.
Some good,
45,000.
Some good, some probably not so good. Like, if someone support veteran nonprofits, what's advice you have to them? Like, pick the right one, so they actually make a difference.
So, man, that's such a tough. And you're really coming with the A game tonight. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting to know what they're all about, and don't just pick one at random. Just like, do your research, and what are they all about, and what do they really do? And what I would tell some folks to do is read what it says on their websites and then compare it to what they actually do for real. Like if they're saying they're doing this, then is that what they're really doing? If you're following them on the pages and LinkedIn or whatever it is, does that match? And what kind of events are they doing? Where are they holding them? But I think most of all is, what's their background? What's their legacy? Where did they come from? How do they know what they're doing? And I think a lot of them, there's a tendency to think, because of all the stuff that we've happened, I'm not going to mention the name of the programs, but there were some pretty significant things that made people leery, right? And I run into it every day with what I do. But the place, because people are just leery to give, because like, where's this going? I need to know a breakdown and all that stuff. And so what we're trying to do, honestly, is, and it's always honest, I got to quit using that phrase, but it's always honest, right? Is we're trying to get to where folks are aligned with a mission that's beyond themselves. I think that's, for me, is something that I've really looked at. It's when I go out to somebody, if they're so focused on exactly what they're doing, and they don't want anybody to have chinks in their armor, or they don't want to let somebody else in, or they don't want to expand. Some folks are doing great stuff, but me, I look for folks that want to give beyond maybe what they did or what they're doing, and want to connect. So we're building that organization for us right now that, like, not every person can go. I'm trying to put together an Angie's List, of nonprofits, and to where folks know what it's at. But I want folks that are going to be part of the team that we're putting out there, to where when we travel, maybe I don't have 7 different, K9 handlers. I don't have all these folks. I have one, but the one is able to explain everybody else's. And I think you just go and talk to them. I think you get to know them just like a job interview. If you're really going to dump, put a lot of money into something, go talk to the person. Reach out, talk to their staff, see how they interact, see what they're doing, look at their website. Go to an event. See if it matches. Go visit them. Go, because there's all kind of way to interact. You can text, email, Facebook, all these different avenues. And I would encourage people to actually ask those tough questions, because sometimes, honestly, I've come across it where a couple of organizations haven't quite been exactly what they laid themselves out to be. And again, there's a human factor in there, right? But I think the large majority, I would say I'm going to go with 95%, maybe even higher than that, are out really to do some good. And I think the ones that maybe go astray is that they start out doing good and then they kind of make a turn somewhere and then it just snowballs on them. Because I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just being optimistic, right? But it's just like having an accident. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I'm gonna go have an accident, because then it wouldn't be an accident, right? So I think folks wake up and they start nonprofits to do good. And then you get burnt out because, in the nonprofit world, people will say, I'm going to donate, and then they don't donate. Or, hey, I'm going to give you this in kind, and they don't do that. Or, hey, you can come use this, and they don't. Or, hey, we're going to show up and help you do this, and they don't do it. And it gets frustrating. I think that's why you have such burnout. I've had some pretty large organizations commit pretty heavily to what it is that I do. And then when it comes down time to writing the checks, which was promised, then it doesn't happen. So now you've planned based on what you feel is a commitment, kind of that military thing where the expectation is there. If you commit, it's going to happen. And you've got this plan, all of a sudden you got to redo your whole budget. It happens in the business world too. It's no different than running a business. But I guess it's maybe if I was a little more skeptical, and I just want to think everybody's out there to do great stuff, and really get it right. But I don't think there's any one way. I just think, look at it as an interview, a job interview. If you're going to have somebody and you want to work for this team, who would that be? And are they doing what you want to do? Are they committing to what is that you truly believe in, and can you get behind it? I think that's where you have to make the decision. So I don't know if that truly answered the question, but that was that was the best political thing that I could do, because I really don't want to call anybody out, because I think even inside of organizations we may call bad, there's still a lot of great people. And that's where it's such a tough question for me is I maybe have dodged that one, which is not my nature, but I just meet these organizations that I know sometimes that they may be in a lull and they're struggling and they're straining, but I meet the people that are inside of those organizations, and man, they're just wonderful people, that their heart is in the right place and they're wanting to go the right place, and it gets sidetracked. So all those folks with some of the bigger organizations that we know went through some struggles, man, I know people inside of those organizations, and those people are, the salt of the earth. And they got caught up in a bad situation, and they may not even know what was going on at the higher level. So I would say do your research. Research.
Greg, talk about running a nonprofit, right? Because like running a nonprofit is basically like running a business, right?
It is a business. So, the only difference is with a nonprofit, you have to spend the money on what you say you're going to spend it on. Where with a business, I have a lot of latitude. So if it's a veteran nonprofit and I got this and that's what my charter says, I'm kind of bound by it. I can have money in the account. It's not like, the NFL was a nonprofit up until not too long ago. So think about that, because they provide entertainment, which is one of the things, entertainment. And so running a nonprofit is just like running a business. But when you do the carryover, you don't distribute. And I'm not a lawyer. But this is from my, you don't distribute the earnings or your surplus, if you want to call it that, what you didn't spend. You don't distribute that in stock shares. You carry that over in the next year. You use it on what you say you're going to use it on. And so you can't, I can't give now as a president or a founder, as a president or a board member, you don't get paid. But there is our staff members. You can't run an organization the size of the amazing Gary Sinise organization without having paid staff members. There's certain people that do jobs that require that, but then the board keeps it on track and goes forward. And so I think it's when you look at that too, is what's the percentage that folks are getting paid? But for me, I haven't taken a dime, right? And so I've been blessed by being able to do that. And that's why I have some of my other businesses. And I don't say that, but there are administrative costs. I'm not going to tell you it hadn't cost anything, but I've been in a situation to where I haven't had to, but now we're getting bigger. I'm going to have to do expense accounts and some of that stuff to make it happen. So there is administration cost, right? But it's a business. It really is. Except the difference is, again, that I can't distribute my earnings or distribute what I have in the bank account at the end of the year because we did such a great job. That just means we can do a better job next year.
So Greg, can you talk about the coffee club?
Yeah, so the coffee club, we're going through a little bit of a transition, but what the coffee club is, it kind of has a couple different parts, and it's one, giving people an opportunity. So this is a really cool opportunity for folks is so I have a coffee company, and if people want to join in and they want to co-brand with me, I actually, if they give me their logo and they say yes, then I'll give them half the profits, and there's no catch to it. It's literally, they give me the logo, they say yes, I do the shipping. After everything is done, the net profits is split 50-50. The 50% that goes to them, they can use to help, do their own, grow their own organization. The other 50% goes into a venture fund to where it helps get them to the next event. So they only have to work on growing it. So again, that's going to have to grow, right? But it's part of helping people. Like when I first started out, I didn't have all the money in the world to be able to put a nonprofit together. So I had to go out and raise funds and write checks out of my own pocket and all that stuff. So what I'm trying to do with young entrepreneurs and folks that are trying to do nonprofits that maybe have an idea but no bank account is to give them a way to make that money and do it through just saying, look, I already have this thing set up. Yes, I'm going to get something out of it because I'm going to give you a way to make money. I'm going to take care of the logistics. I'm going to take care of the website. I'm going to take care of all that stuff. And then you're going to get your logo. My logo will be there. We both get some advertising out of it. But then you get half the money, and really the only thing that you're doing is saying yes and then promoting it, and then folks buy the coffee. And so that's the big part of it. But the coffee club also is where it's growing to, is we're doing pop-ups. So right now, one of my partners is Crunch Fitness. And so one of the plans that I just spoke with them on is on Saturday mornings at Crunch, I'll go and start setting up at 9, which is where they open on Saturdays. And then when folks come out, I'll give them coffee if they want to come out and chat or whatever after they go to the gym. Then I can get to know in these local locations is what's needed. Whether it's a veteran or not, it still all kind of comes together. And so there's a coffee club portion to it where it's really a gathering of friends to help us connect even more.
What does the coffee come from?
So the coffee, we have it. So right now it's coming from, there's stuff come from Mexico. It's all around the world. And I won't say everywhere, but a lot of it is the Arabica beans, which comes out of Mexico. And then we have some stuff that comes from, Puerto Rico. So I may mess this up. I hate, this is something I don't try to come out, but we do have it coming from multiple locations around the country or around the world, right? And so the new person that I'm looking at right now, it's called Third Day Coffee, and it's out of Seguin, Texas. And we are actually doing a collaboration where it'll be me, them, and then a guy that does Miller, I think it's Miller Time stickers he does down there, to where we're going to work on this as a partnership. And they have some amazing coffee. I just got the samples in, and my socks were blown off, right? And so the coffee that they're doing, they sent me, it was mostly Arabica beans. There was some Robusto, I think that's how you pronounce it. But there were different flavors that they sent me. But what we really want to do is we want to get that one amazing cup of coffee that we have one right now. We're always trying to improve, right? And get the one that blows your socks off, makes your toes curl kind of thing. And then we want to make sure that that's available. So when we're sitting around, we're not talking about how crappy the coffee tastes, but we're talking about, oh man, this is amazing. But here's what I would like to do in the community. And here's how we would like to move forward. And here's how we would like to grow. And oh, by the way, here's what we would like to do across the country. And so our goal is that all the events that we have, that it's part of the coffee club, that people come in. And it just, when you say coffee club, what does it feel like? It feels like you're going to a cigar bar or going somewhere and you're sitting around having conversations. That's what the meaning behind it is. And then the exchange portion, it's Camaraderie Coffee Club and Exchange. The exchange is putting all these like-minded folks together under one roof. And then we travel around the country to go to and with and for and by and around people where they need the help. And so it's all this big, unique interplay that all works to support Camaraderie Rescue Mission.
I'm guessing people can go online, order coffee, and be delivered anywhere in the world.
What's that?
And you can order online and has been delivered anywhere in the world.
Yeah, you can have it delivered. It's, the price for getting it overseas is a little more expensive, obviously, but it's exactly what it's CamaraderieCoffeeClub.com. That's the name of the website. If you go to our website for Camaraderie Rescue Mission, tcrmi.org, there's a link to go to the coffee company. And what happens is what we make, that money goes directly into helping me travel it. That's what it was intended for in the beginning, was to just help pay my expenses, because I didn't want to take money out of what people were donating. And so now it's grown, and the coffee club's getting bigger, and the coffee the coffee is getting better, and people are requesting it more and more. And so now it's turned into a business. And then the exchange is a place to where we get all these different folks. It's going to be a subscription service. I'm working on the website now for that, to where like your organization, my organization, all of us, we're all there, and we're part of this huge network, so that we all connect and we do events, co-branding and all that stuff to really help us grow, but more to reach out to those folks that you talked about earlier that may not want to come out of their house, but you need to give them a call. And we have these intentions, and we have these things to where when I go to your part of the country or California, wherever, we have this network of friends to where we put on this, I call it the traveling circus, where I'm the head clown, right? And so what I tell people is, when we do these events, there's you remember the old, the train with the circus that you got as a kid? There was the tigers, lions, bears, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how it sets up for me, is there can only be so many tigers, so many lions, so many bears. But I need the person that does the stuff for the bears to know all about the bear area of responsibility, so that we can get people what they need. And then we travel light like a spec ops unit, and we travel around the country, but we get people the information that they need in the smallest package as possible, so that I can set up in the middle of a parking lot. I can set up at a church camp. I can set up in the middle of Des Moines, Iowa, if I need to. And we're just this light traveling unit that goes around and just helps people and just figures out what they need in those communities. And then we build the community in that community, and then we just keep growing. So we become this connected network of folks that really just want to see us thrive as a nation, grow as a nation, and become closer and more connected than we've ever been.
So Greg, let's talk about the Falls Eventual mobile ropes course. That's like so much fun watching it on your website. This is like a lot of good time.
So that was something that it was kind of cool how it happened. So Jock Weilers, he's the CEO of it, and he kind of tracked me down. He's a prior ranger, and he did a really good job of doing his research, and he asked me to come out, and we had this conversation and talked about it. And what he's been doing for years, since 1995 is when that came out, is that he does these ropes courses to where it basically kind of puts this little bit sense of anxiety because you're climbing and that kind of stuff, but he gives people a sense of the confidence to be able to overcome and achieve. And that traveling ropes course, I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but I believe if it's fully up and going, I think it'll hold like 8 people, like with everything that you can do at one time. And right now we're in the midst of refurbing that. We're raising money for him, or raising money for us. I tell everybody it's all connected. We're raising money to kind of get that whole thing refurbed, because there's just, with ropes, there's some maintenance, but it's amazing because it's very safe. He's trained on all the procedures. He's got the safety protocols and all that stuff in the lanyards, the belaying, and all the things you have to do. But honestly, there's so much that you can do with that. That's part of a leadership type technique, because the family and leadership life skills, that organization really, really sets up to where underprivileged, underserved, female veterans, all those things, and that's what they brought me in for, is that we use people, we bring it out into their location, which is why we love the mobile aspect of it, is the fact that we can go in and really learn, and folks can learn about themselves. And it's very simple, and we just let them kind of go through the process. And Jock he's the ringmaster of that circus, right? And I mean that in the best possible way, is that this guy is so energetic, he loves that thing. And I'm just so happy that he brought me in, because I learned something from him every day. Like, no kidding, like this guy has more energy than any person of his age. And Jock, that's not an old joke, that's a compliment, right? I want to make sure he understands that. But he has so much energy, and he loves the kids. He loves what he's been doing. And he wanted a military aspect of it that was specifically military. It wasn't exclusionary before, but he wanted specifically military, because he knows we're going through some of the same struggles and some of the things of the folks he's been working with, which is the underserved and things like that. But that ropes course is really a way, because when you set it up, it's going to draw attention, right? People come over to it. It's something that's like, this is really cool. It looks like something out of, like we pulled it out of basic training, or one of the places, the courses that you go through in the military and stuff. But I watched him do it at a middle school up on the north side of Lakeland not too long ago. And to watch the kids, he has them trained to where they're working through it. They're getting people set up. He's got a person that's in charge. This girl, I wish I remember her name, but she was just knocking out of the park, getting everybody where they needed to be, make sure that they were holding the rope tight and have enough tension on it and all this kind of stuff. It was just cool. And he does way more than the ropes course, and we collectively do way more than that. This weekend, when we have our event out in Winter Haven, he's got this deal where there's some 4x4s and some ropes. We got to have four people walk together. And, you pull the rope up as you're walking with this 4x4. If you don't get it right, then kind of teaches that leadership and that teamwork and that togetherness. And that's what that ropes course, but it really focuses on the interpersonal of while you're climbing, but the people that are a part of your team, you have to learn how to trust them.
And like how many kids in middle school, like went to the ropes course, like, I can't do this, and they end up doing it and just boosts their confidence so much.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like doing the simple course.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to see, when I was up there, the young girl that was kind of leading it, she was going through some stuff, and he pulled her over. He's like, hey, you need to kind of get in there and take control of the situation. That's, and she, I mean, man, I'm like, how old is she? We're going to give her an early, like, go to the NBA. We're going to give her an early contract and get her when she graduates, she's coming out here. Right. But it's just to see their faces light up and what they're doing. It was cool. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm relatively new into the organization, but what I'm seeing so far, man, I'm just honored the fact that he tracked me down, and said, Greg, I would love you to be a part of this with us, because it's really amazing what he's been doing. And that was such a compliment to what Camaraderie Rescue Mission does with the veterans and all that kind of stuff. And with what we've been doing with the sailing trips and what we've been doing with the equine demonstrations. And it was such a great compliment that I couldn't say no. It was, man, where do I sign up? And then he offered it to me, and I'm like, I'm in, man. Let's do this. Let's have some fun.
Greg, talk about this barbecue you're doing on April 30th.
Okay, so on April 30th, we have an event up in Winter Haven, and we are combining with Freedom Boat Club. If you guys aren't familiar with them, they have boat clubs around the country, around the world, really, about 350 locations. And what you do is you pay a down payment. I won't go into the numbers, and then you pay a monthly fee, and then you pay for the gas when you go out and use it. But you walk up and say, I want that boat, and you go out. So when I was looking for a way to reach veterans across the country at many locations around the world, they already have that in play, right? So I went and had a conversation with them and said, look, my whole goal, maybe we're not there yet, but my goal is to eventually have a captain that works with Camaraderie Exchange, Camaraderie Rescue Mission, that gets people out there, and I can take veterans out fishing or riding a boat. Because what do you do when you go fishing? You let your hair down, right? You relax, you talk about stuff, and now we're able to connect. And so it comes back down to that main pillar, that main tenet. And so that's part of why we connect with them. And then there's the Freedom, or the Champions Church. It's up there in Winter Haven, that gave us this monster of a lot to be able to have it on. So we just appreciate what they're doing. But it's really a place where they can come out. They're going to see the nonprofits, like the I Got Your Six Foundation's coming. And what they do adventure therapy, like they wrestle alligators and take people jumping out of planes and all that cool stuff. We've got Liberty OVE that's coming, and they do trauma resiliency, to where they call it TRIP, where they work with folks that have PTSD and help move it to long-term memory through visual imagery. We've got Michelle Ladd and her Hero Mobile from National Veterans Resources coming out. The Falls will be there, family and leadership life skills. I just all, and I hope I don't miss anybody, but we've got, let's see, I think, anyway, I'm going to try not to name everybody. I'm just going to say there's a bunch of folks, but we're all on the same page, right? And that's where it all starts, is they'll come in, and the whole goal is for people to get to see, when they come to one of our week-long retreats, or 2 and 3 or 5-day retreats, that they'll get to walk the line and see, like, okay, here we're going to do yoga. Here we're going to do the Liberty OVE is going to help folks with PTSD. So they're kind of cleared and ready to receive what we're going to do. And then the next one, we're going to go out and introduce you to some horsemanship and let you truly connected through natural horsemanship, not riding horses. That may be part of it in the future with some other organizations we're working with, but it's really connecting with them through natural horsemanship and getting them to come to you and connect and truly have that one-on-one connection with a horse. And it's amazing what happens there. But there's also going to be food trucks. There's going to be some barbecue trucks. There's going to be some vendors there. There's going to be some merchant places to where folks can come and buy. There's going to be a place where they can set up and come and sign up with us in the Camaraderie Exchange, so that they can be a part of this bigger network that we're growing. But at the end of the day, it's about bringing a community together, bringing friends together, and just getting to know each other. And we'll grow from there, and it's, I'm excited about it, if you can't tell, so it's something that has been it's been this big, what do they call it? The BHAG is what I think Jim Collins says, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, but I've got a team in place now, and the past teams that we've had, they've all led to this point, right? everybody's had
So
this.
this is the first time doing this?
This is the first time doing this one, so we're going to continue to get better. We've had other events, but this is a big event. This is like a showcase event of what we can do.
And are you going to try to do it once a year moving forward?
So what I want to do is I want to do it across the country. Hopefully at some, if everything works out, we'll be doing it at the Freedom Boat Club locations. Or we're going to take this event and template it and then move it to different locations, whether it's a business or whether it's with a nonprofit or whether it's at a location. So this is part of that traveling, but this is just a really big showcase of, hey, we want to love the community. We want the community to come out and have some fun, have some food, come to the jump castles, come out and listen to the music that we got going, do some leadership building events, meet some of these amazing nonprofits. And then we want to take that and travel it across the country.
So Greg, let's suppose tomorrow you have 30 things you need to do. To prioritize number one, number 30. How do you make sure you focus on things 1, 2, and 3 versus going to number 27 or 28?
So what we have is, like I said, we have an advisory board, and right now I have a team that their number one goal, honestly, and I appreciate this so much, is making sure that I stay healthy, which I haven't done that for myself, and they're making me take time off. But what we do is we literally look at what has the most reach and the most expansion. Right now, what that is making sure that the folks that need help get the help that they need. And the way that I've done that is, so with Camaraderie Rescue Mission, we focus on horses, barbecue, and water, right? And what I mean by that, I could say animals, food, and nature, but it doesn't nearly sound as cool, I don't think, as saying horses, barbecue, and water, right? So our events evolve around horses, having some good food there, and then having a water event when we're there, whether it's boating or whatever it is. And so that's what we focus on specifically with Camaraderie Rescue Mission, right? And then I'm trained on some of the stuff that Liberty OVE does with the trauma resiliency, but that's their mission. And so I want the professionals, the people that do it on a regular basis, to come in and do it. And so when I have to align what's that, I look at exactly what can have the most impact. Liberty OVE can go nationwide right now because they can do what they do online. You know what I mean? And so we support them. We work together. I promote them like I'm doing now. And then when we've got, I got your 6, if you're going to jump out of a plane, you got to get to the plane. So a little bit different, right? And so we try to give folks options. And so depending on the venue or the event, it's kind of like an a la carte. So if I'm going to go out and go to the middle of Nebraska, I probably am not going to do a sailing adventure there, right? But there may be a Freedom Boat Club. And again, we're doing the overlays and really laying this whole thing out where it's perfectly, but the way that we determine 1, 2, 3, or 4 is by looking at the location that we're going, looking at what's required in that location, doing some of our research to say, okay, here's where the struggles are at. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's, there's been a drought there, maybe there's been this. And then how do we best connect with the people of that community? And that's how we just, and then it's from there, we just kind of, set up our team and let God point us in the right direction. And then we go and show up and hopefully, not hopefully, we bring the community together.
So Greg, can you go more detail about your nonprofit, like how it got started?
Yeah.
What you focus on now? What's it like your big audacious goal for it moving forward?
Yeah. So the goal, so how it got started was I told the story about the brain surgery, right? And I told you about what happened following that with the individual that said, make an appointment, right? And so I've always wanted to do it. I've always really enjoyed helping folks. I've always really enjoyed, the aspect of training and making processes and people better. Well, in 2000, I'm trying to make sure I get the date right. 2020, it was the day after Christmas. And I'm looking at my Facebook, and on my Facebook, I think there were 7 badges that had this black stripe on them, which meant that someone had passed away. And I didn't really know how at that point. Over the next day or so, I'd found out why, but I looked at that on the 26th of December, and I looked at my wife, and I just assumed the worst. And I looked at my wife and I said, I'm resigning from my current job. I'm not sure exactly when, but this is what I need to be doing. And when I came up with a name, when you talk to military folks, people ask you, Jason, when you say, what do you miss most about the military? What do you normally say? What do you hear people say?
The people.
The camaraderie, right? And so that's how the name came about. And then the camaraderie is what we lose. And so that's where the whole name came from, Camaraderie Rescue Mission. I don't have a big building. I have a big, hairy, audacious goal. Again, credit to Jim Collins for that one. But it's something that we want to take what we do with the equine demonstrations, the therapy. We want to go and work with folks with PTSD. We want to work with all these in conjunction with folks like the Falls, folks like that, and then make this a traveling to where people can show up, and we put it in a church parking lot, and they can come out there for 1, 3, and 5 days, or we do it on location, like down at the In-Stride Therapy that Easter Seals owns down in Sarasota. We do these events where folks come out, they really get the services they need. And you don't have to have 500 people there. You have these folks that have the resources and become the subject matter expert in the field which they represent. Again, it could be therapy, it could be canines, it could be horses, equine therapy, and all that stuff. We make sure that we have those subject matter experts. And we have built a really good team now, and every day we're adding to it. And then that's the goal. The goal is to be connected in all states and around the world, so that when folks have a concern, that they feel comfortable. And when you go out and you're a part of our organization, you get that camaraderie exchange logo that's on there's an ecosystem. Let me explain it this way. So you've got a clinical aspect, right? That's where like the therapy and all that comes in. And then you've got a coaching, because when you go to like treatment or you go to whatever, you have this situation that you've had a shift. Something has changed because your mind thinks differently, or you've kind of had this thing to where you're in this mode of you've had a shift and things are feeling better. Well, then there's some coaching involved, because like we hear folks that come out of rehab that go back in the same situation, they don't really truly know how to interact because they're back in that same place. So they're going to have these coaches that help move them forward. And then the bottom is where the nonprofit comes in. So the nonprofit can be either in the portion of the clinical, they can be in the portion of the coaching, or they can do all three. But when people see that logo that's on there and they're part of this greater organization, that they can get focused. So now between the coffee company and between the other things that we sell and what we do and the venture fund, we create our own ecosystem to where really we self-fund ourselves, we move around, and we're changing. That's kind of where part of my bio came from, is we're literally changing the way that nonprofits can fund themselves and the way that we interact, because we're building something that really, where the financial part, we can set it up to where they only concentrate on what it is that they're trying to do, not the travel portion. And we figured out a way to make sure that happens, so that folks that are welcomed in and they get vetted and they meet the criteria and all that kind of stuff, that they no kidding can move forward with us, and then they travel with us. But it's a team. It's not with us, I mean the collective us. It's one big happy family. And so we have, instead of having just camaraderie rescue mission there, we've got this whole list of folks there, and every one of them are experts in their field.
And Greg, has it been proven that like horses actually like help calm you down and have like this big mental health boost for people?
Yeah, so I've experienced it, and I think it's cool. So you can't lie to a horse, right? I think there's a book out there that says that, but a horse will reflect the way that you interact with it. So if you come up to it, I tell this story, and my former treasurer that was in the organization, he goes out there and he goes out in the middle of the arena, and I said he looked like Iron Man, which he thanked me for. He thought that was pretty cool. I compared him to Iron Man. And as he was in there with the horse, it took about 30 minutes for finally the horse to respond the way that he was trying to get it to. Again, no physical touch. It's all through body language. And it's being coached by Nancy Slater, Natural Horsemanship, at her cowboy camp out in Lake Wales. And when you truly end up connecting with the horse, and when I looked into the horse's eyes, I'm like, we just connected, because the horse responded to me. If you go in there and you're trying to be tough guy, then it'll just kind of walk away from you and won't have anything to do with you. But when you humble yourselves and you really show it that you care, because they're prey animals, right? As someone says, I don't really like, but it's meat on feet, because they really don't have a way, they're horses, and that's a really, kind of rough way to put it, but they get spooked. They want to make sure they know their surroundings, because things are going to attack, right? And if they trust you, it's kind of like a military person. They trust you forever. So I wish I had more horses in my life back when I was kind of holding back some of it, because you can't lie to them. And that's where the connection happened, because the horse will reflect the attitude in which you come at the horse with. And that's why it really kind of humbles the person. And it's just, there's certain studies that show that horses are better than dogs. We have service animals. I don't want to see, there's probably our service horses out there. Again, I'm still really digging into this hard, but where it all comes down to is they don't let you come to them in a attitude in which they don't respect, because you have to show that you're the one you kind of have to become a team, and they have to respect you. And they don't let you come to it if you have this emotion and you're kind of snappy and stuff, then they just won't pay attention to you, because they've got you outweighed who knows how many pounds, right?
And so where do you keep your horse at? You have like a ranch or farm that you get to use?
So what we have, yeah. So right now, I don't have a ranch myself, but Nancy Slater's, again, out at Horsemanship. She has, it's called Nancy Slater's Natural Horsemanship. She's out in Lake Wales, and we go out there, and she brings her horses out. She actually is the coach. She at one point was a Pirelli trained instructor. I believe she was a path instructor at one point, and she's taken it to the next level. So she has her own modality, her own methods that she uses. And so we go out there to her. We actually, the first week of May, we're staying on her property. She's got a 10-person cowboy cabin that we stay in. And when we do these events, we want about 10 to 12 max, because then we have that intimacy, but yet we have enough to really, do different groups and allow folks to come along. And so she goes out and they go into the round pen, the round deal, and she works with them from the outside, talks, and the person goes into the pen by themselves. And then she coaches them on how to interact with the horse. And then when they finally connect, it's amazing. And so right now, I don't have an intention personally at this point to have like a true horse ranch. What I do is I work with folks, as I work in conjunction with what they have, and make sure that they meet the requirements of what I believe the veterans need, and based on some expert advisors and therapists and folks that are trained in EGAL and some of those things, to say, here's what we need to do.
And do people actually ride the horses?
So we do. So I have so there's a group right now that I'm working with. It's called Extreme Horsemanship. That's up in that event at Nancy Slater's. No, sir, they do not. Because again, it's a different type of thing. You can look up the natural horsemanship. Now we do have another group that we're working with that is more of a riding thing. It's called Extreme Horsemanship, and that's up in Webster, Florida. And they're really cool. We're working with the guy, Eric, up there that owns the place, and he does riding events. He actually goes around the country and he teaches people how to shoot like a bow and arrow from horseback. And
oh, wow.
So he has some really neat stuff that he's doing. And I just met him the other day, and I was so excited. I'm really excited about this, and Nancy's is more of a methodical thing, more of I'd say like a true, maybe, I don't want to call it therapy, but a demonstration, more of a therapeutic clinical type setting thing, to where the other one is riding the horses, and it performs a therapeutic process, but it's also this adventure that you're doing. So it all has its place, and there's going to come the point where we bring them together. But for right now at that event, it's more of a clinical type event, maybe less than maybe what you go to some, maybe more than others. But we're really focusing on the horse. The first 2 days is really nothing but the horses and some mindfulness meditation and yoga.
Yeah, I haven't rode a horse in a long, long time, but man, I definitely know it's therapeutic for sure. It's like,
yeah,
it's very calm. It's like you're like one of nature, like one of the horse. It's a definitely great feeling.
Yeah, I just, I told Nancy, I think one time I said, I know which end it eats, and I know which end the hay goes after it's done, doing its business. I said, that's my knowledge of horses. I grew up in Kentucky, and I love them, and thoroughbreds and all that stuff. I just love the pageantry and all the things that we do for the horse race and everything. But I truly didn't understand horses until I went out to her ranch. And when I went out there the first day, she's got just these amazing animals, these beautiful creatures. And I walked up, and one, we kind of went eyeball to eyeball. And I jokingly say that when he looked at me, like, it was like he reached down into my soul. And then he kind of whispered in my ear, like, hey boy, you probably need to come back here a lot, because we got some work to do, right? like we gotta get you to where you loosen up a little bit, and we gotta, but it really, I'm telling you, when I looked eyeball to eyeball, I just felt it. It wasn't something that I wasn't expecting anything. It was something that just organically happened, and it totally blew me away.
Greg, is there anything I should ask you that I haven't asked you yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I think one thing I would like to bring in, and I know I've said a little bit, but my family and friends have supported me so much through this, and when you're doing a nonprofit, or even when you're starting a new business or in the military, there's that connection that you have, and folks that surround you that really make you be able to allow you to do what you do. And my wife, I haven't been the easiest guy to live with, and my family, my girls, there's stuff I've missed on what they've done. And if I had one thing to say to folks, and maybe this is not where you were going with the question, but if I had to say one thing, is they always talk about that. No one's ever on their deathbed that says, I wish I would have worked more. And that's something that maybe I need to really listen to that thoroughly, and totally take a lesson and take care of me better, so I can do that more, and not put in those crazy hours. But the people that love you, they're going to love you no matter what. But I think for me, it was the way that I was loving them back. And sometimes I was loving them so hard that I was working so many hours trying to provide money, or trying to provide an income, and really all they wanted was just me to be there. And so I think that's important. And that's kind of where the camaraderie rescue mission is at: to connect, support, sustain. is that we have to connect. And even though I've been helping other folks do it, I think sometimes you got to look within yourself, and you got to learn to just connect with yourself and connect with those that are around you that love you, and then press forward and do it with the others. So I just want to say thanks to all those out there. There's been a ton of them. I could list just so many names, which has been a complete blessing, including you, Jason, for having me on here. But I think the thing that I would, humbly say thank you. I mean, thank you. And I love you guys for it. And I wouldn't be where I'm at, both physically and mentally, if it wasn't for those that have surrounded me and given me so many opportunities. So I just appreciate that. I really do.
Greg, can you give us your social media for links for both yourself and your nonprofit so people reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look up my nonprofit, it's TCRMI for the Camaraderie Rescue Mission Incorporated.org, TCRMI.org. And then if you go to that one, what you can do is inside there's a link that says Coffee Club, or I think that's what it says. It says coffee. You can click on that and that takes you to our coffee website. And so that'll get you started. The other one's being built right now for the exchange. It's an evolving process, but we've had a lot of really awesome people, connect with us. The slide deck's being built right now, so I can explain it to folks in maybe a clearer fashion on paper to where I can kind of walk them through it. But it's something that there's a lot of horsepower behind, a lot of folks that you may recognize if I said their names, and they're bought into it and they're already on board as part of the deal. But I would say start with TCRMI. You can look us up on LinkedIn, Facebook. You can connect with me personally, Greg Bicknell, on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then I can connect you with the other ones. But TCRMI, that's what we kind of go by, because like if anybody's like me, it took me like 3 months to learn how to spell camaraderie, right? And so I went with TCRMI because I can spell that, right? And then the Camaraderie Coffee Club, I'm working on that one. You have to be able to spell that out, but that's why I put the link in TCRMI, so you can go straight to the Coffee Club.
And to listen, we have the link to all the social media links in our show notes. You can find the show notes at www.cavnesshlblog.com. Be sure to share this episode with your networks and your friends, and be sure to rate, subscribe, and review the Jason Cavness Experience on your favorite podcast platform.
Awesome.
So, Greg, we're coming into a talk. Can you give us any last minute wisdom or advice or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. So this has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. And I think, love the ones you're with, love the ones you're around, and just be true to yourself and true to others. I think that's use your gifts and talents, as like I said, as Carrie would say, to be a blessing to others and to give. But most importantly, I just think take care of yourself first. There's no wrong in that. There's nothing wrong with saying I need to take a knee. There's nothing wrong with saying I need a little bit of help, or I need just a moment. Because I think, and then when you get to that point, don't be afraid to reach out. If you don't have anybody to reach out to, heck, reach out to me and give me a shot. And there's other organizations out there, but connect, support, sustain. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we're going to continue doing. And so that would be my suggestion: is take care of yourself first, and then make sure that you use your gifts and talents to be a blessing to those around you.
And shout out to Carrie Steele for introducing us.
Yeah, absolutely. Carrie's great. I sometimes I'm like, he gets plugged. Sometimes I forget and I end up plugging organizations more than my own. But I just love what folks are doing. When they do a great thing, they need to be plugged, right? And Carrie's been a big dude. So hopefully we'll maybe you'll just edit his name out or put like a beep over top of it. That way he doesn't get a big head and call me and say, man. So, but anyway, no, he's a great friend. He's a mentor. I consider him a mentor.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of great things.
He does. Yeah. And we're going to continue doing stuff together. And like I said, he's a good dude.
So Greg, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, I enjoyed it, man. I can't wait to maybe do a follow-up one or get you out to one of our events or just connect, because this has been a blast.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.